Chapter 3:10. For disciples from aristocratic families like Xiahou Wujiang, unless they were born with a powerful talent like little celestial master Zhang Qingzhen, they were destined to go through many intrigues. An aristocratic family, even if it was a big one like the Xiahou family, could only use all its resources to cultivate one disciple, instead of distributing resources to cultivate two. In terms of talent, Xiahou Wujiang was not bad, but he was also very skilled in such secret conspiracies. Those present were all old foxes in the Jianghu. It was not difficult for them to imagine that if they really did as Xiahou Wujiang said, it would not be easy for Chu Xiu to return to the Guanzhong torture room safely. Most of the warriors in the Jianghu were actually more rational, but there were too many people, and there were always some impulsive and hot-blooded guys who would jump out to make trouble for Chu Xiu. But at this time, Xiahou Wujiang immediately said, "Just inciting the emotions of the warriors of Eastern Qi is too random. You have seen Chu Xiu's strength. If the idiot who jumps out first is killed by him, it is very likely that the people behind will be afraid and dare not make any more moves. A snake can't be without a head. This kind of thing must have a leader, and this leader is you." Lin Nani and the others looked at each other. After talking for so long, they still needed to make a move. But in this way, wouldn't they be in danger? But before Lin Nani and the others could find an excuse to decline, Xiahou Wujiang said impatiently, "What are you afraid of? With so many people, are you still worried that you can't defeat Chu Xiu alone? This time, you are only playing a leading role. There are other warriors of Eastern Qi who will make a move together. With so many people, one spit from each of them can drown Chu Xiu. What are you afraid of? And this time, it is also good for you. The Jiangdong 5 heroes are dead, and now so many people in the Jianghu are filled with righteous indignation. As the first ones to stand out, your reputation will be yours. Think about the reputation of the 5 heroes of the River East. If you can kill Chu Xiu and avenge the 5 heroes of the River East, your reputation will be even greater than the 5 heroes of the River East." Everyone present looked at each other, feeling a little tempted. People in Jianghu only seek fame and fortune. Even Lin Nani and Yao Leshan, who had a good reputation, only cared about fame and fortune. Chang Buhui could be chivalrous for the sake of fame and fortune, but their chivalry was built on fame and fortune. Asking them to be unafraid of death for the sake of so-called chivalry and spirit was something they would never do. However, Lin Nani was still a little hesitant. "Young Master Xiahou, what if the Guanzhong torture room still implicates us because of this? After all, as the initiators, there's a high chance that we'll be noticed by the Guanzhong torture room." Xiahou Wujiang frowned. "What are you afraid of? If the matter escalates to the level of the whole Eastern Qi, the Guanzhong torture room won't be able to do anything. Chu Xiu has gone too far and provoked public anger. Can the Guanzhong torture room teach all the warriors of Eastern Qi a lesson? Moreover, even if the Guanzhong torture room really does something to you, I'm the one who organized this matter. Can I just watch something happen to you? Or do you think that the Xiahou family is inferior to the Guanzhong torture room?" Hearing Xiahou Wujiang's promise, Lin Nani and the others hurriedly said, we dare not. Since we have young Master Xiahou's guarantee, we can rest assured." Xiahou Wujiang waved his hand and said, "Since that's the case, then you can go. Don't worry, if anything happens, the Xiahou family will support you." Watching Lin Nani and the others leave, Xiahou Wujiang's personal maid, Chon'er, came out with a teacup and asked, "Young Master, if the Guanzhong torture room really does something to them, are you really going to use the power of the Xiahou family to help them?" Xiahou Wujiang took a sip of tea lazily and said, "I'm just fooling these idiots. The old guys in the family are so noisy. Since they won't let me use the power of the Xiahou family, how can I use it? If I could use the power of the Xiahou family, why would I waste so much time talking to these idiots? Anyway, there's no proof. If the Guanzhong torture room really comes to us, let them vent their anger on the behalf of the Guanzhong torture room. The most outstanding disciple of the younger generation died halfway. No matter what, we should let them vent their anger, right?" Hearing Xiahou Wujiang's words, Chon'er couldn't help but sympathize with Lin Nani and the others. In the eyes of a force like the Xiahou family, Lin Nani and the others were really small and pitiful. They could only be used. If they could resist their greed and not agree to Xiahou Wujiang's request, then Xiahou Wujiang wouldn't be able to force them to kill. But once they agreed to Xiahou Wujiang's request, no matter whether Chu Xiu was dead or alive, they would be the unlucky ones. Just like the death of Qiu Zhenxing this time, except for Chu Xiu, who was an outsider, most of the people were pawns. Since they were pawns, naturally, they would be worthless after they were used up. Lin Naney and the others acted very quickly. After returning to their respective forces, or finding some rogue martial artists, these people began to deliberately control the rumors, making the matter of Chu Xiu killing the 5 heroes of Jiangdong become a provocation and disdain of the martial arts world of Eastern Qi by an outsider. Although the influence of these people wasn't great, they used the banner of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong to quickly spread this kind of news to the ears of all the martial artists who were concerned about the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. Indeed, it attracted the approval of many people. There were even many people who immediately expressed their desire to teach Chu Xiu a lesson, telling him that there were people in the land of Eastern Qi, and that he couldn't act recklessly and arrogantly. Chu Xiu hadn't noticed these things yet. But after a few days, he had just arrived at a restaurant in the Yen State Mansion. As soon as he pushed the door open and entered, he felt that almost all the martial artists around him were looking at him with hostility. This situation made Chu Xiu frown. Did he know this group of people? Could it be that they had all received favors from the 5 heroes of Jiangdong? Or were they all good friends of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong? Chu Xiu could see from the eyes of this group of people that their hostility toward him was very deep. At the very least, it was much deeper than the martial artists in the Ji State Mansion. When they saw Chu Xiu take a seat, the martial artists in the restaurant whispered to each other for a while. Then, they all paid their bills and left in unison. The originally lively restaurant instantly became empty. Chu Xiu touched the hilt of his saber and pondered. Were the 5 heroes of Jiangdong really so famous in Eastern Qi? It seemed that he had underestimated their influence. He had attracted so many hostile gazes just because he had killed 5 of them. Reputation was something that sometimes didn't show up when you were alive, but when you were dead, many people would jump out to talk about this and that. He didn't know if they were sincere or not, or if they were just trying to make their presence known. However, Chu Xiu didn't care. He wasn't a member of Eastern Qi, so he didn't care about these so-called curses. Even if his reputation in Eastern Qi was really bad, he wouldn't care. Just as Chu Xiu's dishes were served and Chu Xiu was about to pick up his chopsticks, the door of the restaurant was suddenly pushed open. A martial artist in his 40s, dressed in white and holding a sword, walked in surrounded by people. The people beside him were the martial artists who had left earlier. The others beside the white-robed swordsman shouted, "Master Feng, this is Chu Xiu. This person killed the elites of our Eastern Qi's righteous Tao in Eastern Qi, and now he is eating and drinking so arrogantly here. He is simply too arrogant." Master Feng pushed the crowd aside, looked at Chu Xiu and said coldly, "Chu Xiu, you committed such atrocities in Eastern Qi and killed the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, the elites of our Eastern Qi's righteous Tao. How dare you appear here in broad daylight? Do you really think that there is no one in Eastern Qi who can stop you? I was close friends with Dong Xiangyi, one of the 5 heroes of River East. In the end, Brother Dong died tragically at your hands. Today, I will seek justice for Brother Dong. Chu Xiu, if you don't give me an explanation today, don't even think about leaving the Yen Province Mansion." This Master Feng was Feng Weiming, the master of the Feng family village in the Yen Prefecture. He had the strength of 5 Qis collecting in origin, and was considered a prominent figure in the Yen Prefecture. Legend had it that Feng Weiming's ancestors were experts of the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, and the Feng family village was also famous. Unfortunately, the later generations were not as good as the previous ones. In Feng Weiming's hands, his father died early in an accident, and Feng Weiming stepped into the 5 Qis collecting in origin with the help of the Feng family's heritage. He was already the strongest expert of this generation in the Feng family. As for his relationship with Dong Xiangyi, it was not as good as he claimed. They were just fair-weather friends. It was just that Feng Weiming unilaterally thought that he was close friends with Dong Xiangyi, and bragged about his relationship with the 5 heroes of Jiangdong to others. This time, he came to cause trouble for Chu Xiu because he was indignant, but the other half was instigated by others. After all, in the eyes of the other martial artists in the Yen Prefecture, didn't he always say that he was close friends with Dong Xiangyi, the second of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong? He was also close to the other 5 heroes of Jiangdong. When the incident happened, he was still scolding Chu Xiu. Now that Chu Xiu happened to pass by the Yen Prefecture, it would not be right for him to back down. Therefore, Feng Weiming had no choice but to come. Anyway, there were many people in the Yen Prefecture. Would Chu Xiu dare to oppose the public's anger in public? Chu Xiu didn't even raise his head as he ate. You and Dong Xiangyi are close friends? Then you should go to hell to avenge him. Dong Xiangyi was not killed by me, but by LV Tong. Fang Weiming was stunned when he heard this. It seemed that according to the traces found by others, Dong Xiangyi was really killed by LV Tong. But then Fang Weiming pointed his sword at Chu Xiu and snorted. The 5 heroes of Jiangdong are like brothers. How could they kill each other? You must have used some sinister tricks and evil methods to make them kill each other. Chu Xiu slowly swallowed a piece of beef and wiped his mouth. He suddenly raised his head and said, "Do you want an explanation from me?" Fang Weiming suddenly felt his heart skip a beat as if something bad had happened. But he still said coldly, "So what if I did?" "Well, I'll give you an explanation." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu's figure was like an arrow that had left the bow. In an instant, he had already appeared in front of Fang Weiming. Chapter 3:11. Chu Xiu was a temperamental person who would attack at the slightest disagreement. Those who had never dealt with him would never understand him. Swords and knives had no eyes, and fists and feet had no heart. In fact, most people in Jianghu would choose to fight with their mouths first. If they really fought, friction would turn into conflict, and conflict would turn into a battle to the death. At that time, it would not be easy to end it. Therefore, at this time, when Chu Xiu attacked so suddenly, no one present could react at all. After all, Fang Weiming was a warrior of the 5 Qis toward the origin realm. He was the first to react. He raised the long sword in his hand, and a sharp silver-white sword aura flashed out. However, before he could display his sword momentum, he was greeted by a round of dazzling sword aura shining with boundless demonic qi. With a loud bang, Fang Weiming's sword momentum was directly shattered, and his figure could not help but retreat. The other warriors around him also looked shocked and ran away in all directions. Not a single one of them made a move. Seeing this scene, Fang Weiming could not help but curse in his heart. As expected, none of these people could be relied on. However, it was too late for him to curse at this time because a dazzling demonic qi had already erupted from the heavenly demon dance in Chu Xiu's hand, mixed with a ferocious bloody light. The devil's blade of Avicii, the gates of hell opened. The 3 blades of Avicii fell one after another. The first blade completely shattered Fang Weiming's sword momentum, and the second blade directly shattered the long sword in Fang Weiming's hand. By the time the third strike landed, Fang Weiming was already extremely shocked. He formed seals with both hands and condensed Gang Qi in his hands. His vital energy and Gang Qi intertwined, turning into sword fingers in an attempt to block Chu Xiu's strike. However, it was completely shattered by the final strike of the 3 sabers of Avicii. Weak. Too weak. Fang Weiming could be said to be the weakest warrior of the 5 Qis toward the origin realm that Chu Xiu had encountered. Even warriors of the 3-flower realm like Shen Bai or Tong Kai Tai were several times stronger than him. In any case, he was at the 5 Qis gathering in the origin stage, yet he couldn't even block a series of 3 strikes from Avicii Dao. He was simply trashed to the extreme. However, just as Fang Weiming was about to be killed by Chu Xiu's blade, Chu Xiu suddenly withdrew his blade. His hand formed the great Vajra wheel seal and directly slammed his palm into Fang Weiming's dantian, causing him to vomit blood. Then, he directly grabbed Fang Weiming's neck and said coldly, "Didn't you want an explanation? Is this explanation enough?" When the others saw Fang Weiming being carried by Chu Xiu like a dead dog, none of them dared to make a move. What one hears may be false, but seeing is believing. Chu Xiu's strength was indeed well-deserved. Fang Weiming was nothing in the whole of Eastern Qi, but in the Yenzhou prefecture, he was definitely an expert. In the end, he couldn't even withstand a few moves from Chu Xiu and was beaten to this state. If it weren't for Chu Xiu suddenly withdrawing his blade at the last moment, he would have been killed. Fang Weiming's mouth moved. He wanted to say something harsh, but he was now in Chu Xiu's hand. As long as Chu Xiu moved his hand slightly, his neck would be crushed. Fang Weiming didn't even dare to say anything harsh. Mockery flickered in Chu Xiu's eyes as he said, "You want to demand an explanation from me with your conduct? What a joke. I'm the Guanxi patrol under the command of the Guanzhong torture room. What right do you have to kill me? Even if I stood here and let you kill me, would you dare to do it?" Hearing this, Fang Weiming broke out in a cold sweat. In fact, half of the reason why he came here was because he was encouraged by others. How long did it take from the moment Chu Xiu entered the hotel to the moment he arrived? Fang Weiming didn't think that much at all. It wasn't until Chu Xiu said this that he realized what a stupid thing he had done. Before he came here, he didn't even think about whether he wanted to kill Chu Xiu or humiliate him. Just as Chu Xiu said, the Fang family was just a poor family. The glory of their ancestors was gone. If he killed Chu Xiu, he couldn't afford the revenge of the Guangzhong torture room. Chu Xiu said coldly, "Tell me, who ordered you to make trouble for me?" Chu Xiu didn't spare Fang Weiming's life because he suddenly became soft-hearted. Chu Xiu just felt that something was wrong. Logically speaking, the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong shouldn't have such a big influence. After killing them, he became the enemy of all the martial artists in Eastern Qi, and they even escalated to the extent of making trouble for him. Did he kill the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong or the 5 swordsmen of Eastern Qi? Even in the original plot, Chang Buhui and the others were stronger than they were now, but their influence wasn't so big. Therefore, he was a little confused. He was afraid that someone was secretly stirring up trouble and wanted to make a fuss. Fang Weiming said in a low voice, "No one ordered me to come here. It's just because you killed the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong and acted so arrogantly in the land of Eastern Qi, challenging the dignity of the martial artists of Eastern Qi. So many of the martial artists of Eastern Qi are unhappy with you. I'm friends with Dong Xiangyi. This time, when you came to the Yan prefecture, the others came to inform me, so I had to take action. Otherwise, I'll be known as a coward." Chu Xiu frowned. From the looks of it, this Fang Weiming was just an impulsive and brainless idiot. In the beginning, he announced to the public that he was related to the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong, but now he couldn't back down. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something. He suddenly asked, "I killed the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong for a reason. At most, it was a normal Jianghu killing. When did I say that I was challenging the dignity of the martial artists of Eastern Qi? Anything that escalated to the level of territory was unreasonable." Chu Xiu was not really an idiot to do such an arrogant thing. Fang Weiming was stunned and said, "I don't know. But I don't know when it started, but someone said that killing the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong was a provocation to the martial artists of Eastern Qi, and that they looked down on Eastern Qi." Upon hearing this, Chu Xiu was certain that someone was stirring up trouble in the dark. "Get lost!" Chu Xiu stretched out his hand and directly threw Fang Weiming aside. He was a brainless idiot. It didn't matter whether he killed him or not. Fang Weiming also turned around and fled. Just now, he had been scared out of his wits by Chu Xiu's 3 consecutive slashes. He didn't even dare to say a word and went back to recuperate. Not in the mood to continue eating, Chu Xiu directly turned around and left. He had offended many people in Eastern Qi. Chu Xiu couldn't guess who had been secretly stirring up trouble this time. He had ruined the plans of the Crown Prince more than once, so it was possible that it was the Crown Prince. He had also extorted the second prince's annihilation fist of sky devastation, so the second prince's impression of him was probably not good. It was the same for the hidden sword villa. He ignored Cheng Tingfeng's objections and crippled Xin Bai, so Cheng Tingfeng was probably very angry with him. This was the disadvantage of offending many people. When something happened, he could not even guess who was behind this. This person's plan was actually very simple and effective. He raised the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong to the level of the entire Eastern Qi, and it was nothing more than to provoke the emotions of the martial artists of Eastern Qi, although 99% of the martial artists would not fall for it. Most of the martial artists in the Jianghu were actually very rational. Chu Xiu killing the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong was equivalent to provoking the martial artists of Eastern Qi. Over the years, many martial artists of Eastern Qi had died in the hands of outsiders. So why did no one say anything? It was simply because the reputation of the 5 swordsmen of Jiangdong was too good, and Chu Xiu's reputation was too bad. Coupled with the fact that someone was trying to provoke them, anyone with a discerning eye could see what was going on and would not get involved. However, there were many rational people in the Jianghu, but there were also many idiots who could not handle it. If there was one idiot out of 100 people who stood out to cause trouble for Chu Xiu, then there would be a second or even a third. Fang Weiming was such an idiot, so it was not hard to imagine that Chu Xiu would encounter more idiots like him in the future. After Chu Xiu left the Yenzhou mansion, he felt that someone was following him. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. He had just seriously injured Fang Weiming, and yet there was still someone who did not know what was good for him and wanted to attack him? Just as Chu Xiu was about to turn around and drag the person out, the person appeared on his own initiative. It was a middle-aged man in the physical invulnerability stage. He cupped his hands at Chu Xiu and said, "I am Mo Wu, the servant of the third young master." "Nice to meet you, young Master Chu." Chu Xiu was puzzled. "You are Mo Tianlin's man?" Mo Tianlin was ranked third among the younger generation of the Mo family, so people called him the third young master. The middle-aged man nodded and said, "It was the third young master who asked me to come. The third young master asked me to bring you a message. Someone is secretly stirring up trouble and trying to harm you. Moreover, the person's plan is very thorough. If you continue to move forward, it is likely that someone will take the lead and attack you. The third young master suggests that you either hide your whereabouts and act cautiously, or change your direction and head to Daliang City. That is the capital of Eastern Qi. Even if someone wants to harm you, they would not dare to cause trouble there. However, the third young master still suggests that you choose the latter. Right now, your reputation in Eastern Qi is somewhat bad. Even if you change your appearance and hide your whereabouts, it is still possible that you will be discovered. Right now, the third young master is cultivating hard in the Mo family, and the family head has also ordered the third young master to cultivate in seclusion. He is not allowed to come out until he has reached the three-flower realm, so he cannot help you for the time being." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "When you go back, please thank the third young master for his kindness. I will remember this favor." Although Mo Tianlin did not take the initiative to help, he immediately sent someone to inform Chu Xiu when he sensed that something was wrong. This kind of behavior was already very thoughtful. Moreover, this time, even if Mo Tianlin wanted to help, it would not be of much use. Chu Xiu himself was only in the physical invulnerability realm, so he could not stop a few people. If he were to use the Mo family's power, not to mention that Mo Tianlin was only the most outstanding disciple of the younger generation of the Mo family, even if he was the family head of the Mo family, he could not act so recklessly. After all, the Mo family was not a one-man family. After telling Chu Xiu everything that needed to be said, the warrior from the Mo family also cupped his hands and said, "In that case, I will take my leave. Young Master Chu, be careful on your way." Chapter 3:12. Mo Tianlin's reminder made Chu Xiu pay more attention to this matter. People always followed blindly. If idiots like Feng Weiming came knocking on his door, Chu Xiu would only need to kill a few of them, and no one would dare to cause trouble for him anymore. However, if someone took the lead and wanted to deal with him, Chu Xiu would probably have to face a big scene. Mo Tianlin gave Chu Xiu 2 suggestions, but Chu Xiu did not plan to choose either. This was Eastern Qi, a vast land with abundant resources. There were plains everywhere, and barren mountains and dense forests were scarce. Even if Chu Xiu changed his appearance and hid his tracks, it was inevitable that he would be found. And if he were to go to Great Liang City at this time, it would be troublesome if the Guanzhong torture hall didn't return after a long time. Moreover, Chu Xiu didn't know who it was that wanted to deal with him this time. If this person was the crown prince or the second prince, wouldn't Chu Xiu be walking into a trap? Daliang City was the territory of these two. Even if Chu Xiu was from the Guanzhong torture room, he would not be able to fight against the princes of Eastern Qi in the capital city of Eastern Qi. Therefore, in a short time, Chu Xiu had already made a decision, and that was to directly kill his way back to the Guanzhong torture room. Chu Xiu was not being arrogant, but he had a certain degree of confidence and confidence. Chu Xiu's attitude towards the enemy was also different at different times. When it was time to be cautious, when it was time to be overbearing, and when it was time to be crazy, Chu Xiu did not mind being crazy for once. The strength of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong was clear for all to see. Those who were willing to stand up for him would not be strong, and their strength would only be lower than the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, not stronger. Moreover, since there was a leader, the other party must also know who instigated this matter. Chu Xiu had been schemed against once, so he had to know who the person who schemed against him was. Revenge was never too late. Now that he knew who this person was, Chu Xiu would definitely return the favor when he had the chance. 3 days later, Lin Nani, Yao Leshan, and a dozen other warriors were gathered in Heong Prefecture, the only place to go to Guanzhong. According to Xiahou Wujiang's instructions, they had stirred up the emotions of the warriors of Eastern Qi in Jianghu. Now that it was almost done, they were ready to rob and kill Chu Xiu here. At this time, in the largest restaurant in Heong Prefecture, thousands of martial artists had gathered, clamoring to avenge the 5 heroes of River East and teach Chu Xiao a lesson. Of course, most of these people were just here to watch the show. The ones who would actually make a move were probably less than 1/10 of them. After all, there were still more rational people in the Jianghu. Impulsive idiots who disregarded everything when their blood was boiling were still in the minority. But it didn't matter. 1/10 of them were still hundreds of people, and this number was already amazing enough. Chu Xiao was not a martial arts master who could fight against an army of 10,000. Even if the strength of these people was much weaker than Chu Xiao, it was still enough to make Chu Xiao suffer. Standing on the top floor of the restaurant, Lin Nani looked at the warriors below and said with a frown, "They are all a motley crew. There are only a few of them who are powerful." This time, since Lin Nani and others had already decided to attack Chu Xiao, they naturally hoped to succeed in one battle. But at present, they felt that the strength of their side was still not strong enough. Yao Leshan said, "Be content. Those who have received the kindness of the 5 heroes of River East in the past must be weaker than them. Almost no one has surpassed the cultivation of the 5 heroes of River East in just a few years. But fortunately, we have enough people, and a spit from each of us can drown Chu Xiao, not to mention that among these people, the cultivation of the innate realm is the weakest." Lin Nani shook his head and said, "It's still a little insecure. Why don't we add something else?" Yao Leshan narrowed his eyes and said, "What do you think, old Master Lin? Tell me." The Lin family village of Jiangdong had a good reputation in Jiangdong Prefecture. Lin Nani was highly praised in Jianghu, but only people like Yao Leshan knew that this old man was a cruel and merciless master when he was young. For the sake of the Lin family village's rise in Jianghu, he had killed many opponents. In his old age, he began to study Buddhism. He was kind to others and helped the younger generation, as if he wanted to wash away his sins. Lin Nani said in a low voice, "With a great reward, there will be brave men. I'm afraid that they will be scared after Chu Xiao killed a few of their people. So we must add some benefits. Why don't we take out all our belongings? Whoever kills Chu Xiao, these things will belong to them. But we can't take out these things for nothing. Can the Xiahou family compensate us? Miss Chan, what do you think?" Lin Nani looked to the corner and saw a beautiful woman standing there. She was Xiahou Wujiang's personal maid, Chan. Xiahou Wujiang was watched by the family and was not allowed to cause trouble, so he sent Chan to watch the battle. Chan smiled and said, "It's nothing. Old Master Lin can do whatever he wants. It's just some cultivation resources. The Xiahou family can take out. However much you take out, the Xiahou family will compensate you twice as much. I can agree to such a small matter on behalf of my young master." Lin Nani and Yao Leshan immediately praised the Xiahou family for being generous and so on. But they didn't know that Chana was also sneering in her heart. After this matter, it's uncertain whether these families will still be around. It's not so easy to take the things of the Xiahou family. Feeling that almost everyone had arrived, Lin Nani led them downstairs. When the people in the restaurant saw Lin Nani and the others coming downstairs, they all cupped their hands and greeted them, calling them Old Master Lin. Lin Nani returned the greeting and said, "Everyone, I won't say much about the reason why you can gather here this time. The 5 heroes of Jiangdong are the heroes of the righteous path of Eastern Qi, and they are even more chivalrous. Who here hasn't received the kindness of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong? But Chu Xiao, an outsider, is so arrogant in the land of Eastern Qi. He killed the 5 heroes of Jiangdong just like that. Does he think that there's no one in Eastern Qi who can do such a thing?" As soon as these words came out, the people present were immediately filled with righteous indignation and loudly scolded Chu Xiao. Yao Leshan, who was at the side, pressed his hand down and said, "Everyone, please be quiet and listen to me. The martial arts of Eastern Qi has been insulted like this. How can we just let it go like this? This is public indignation. I'm a good friend of Brother Cheng Buji, one of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. Now that Brother Cheng died tragically in the hands of that murderer, I can't calm down. This is a personal grudge. Now that the public indignation and personal grudge have combined, I, Yao Leshan, and Chu Xiao are irreconcilable enemies. I'm willing to offer all my wealth as a reward. If anyone can kill Chu Xiao, to comfort the souls of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong in heaven, all my savings will belong to him." As he said this, Yao Leshan threw out a bag on his back, which was filled with all kinds of elixirs and other cultivation resources. As a rogue cultivator, these were all Yao Leshen's wealth. Lin Nani and the others also made promises that they would be willing to take as many rewards after killing Chu Xiu, but they didn't offer them out on the spot like what Yao Leshan had done. However, the mere mention of it was enough to move the hearts of the people present. After all, most of the people present were rogue cultivators and martial artists from small forces. The value of the things that Lin Nani and the others had offered was simply beyond their expectations. He attacked because his blood was boiling. That blood came quickly, but it left quickly as well. However, if there was a certain amount of profit involved, then many people would probably flock to it, and their blood would cool down a little later. At this moment, a middle-aged martial artist in the Three-Flower Realm approached Lin Nani and the others and said in a low voice, "Everyone, if you want to fight, can you not do it in my River Sun Prefecture? You want to take revenge on Chu Xiu, but the Azure Tiger Gang is innocent." This middle-aged man was the leader of the Azure Tiger Gang, a local gang in River Sun Prefecture. At this moment, he was very helpless. You guys have received the favor of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong and gathered here to avenge him. But what does this have to do with the Azure Tiger Gang? They had nothing to do with the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. Moreover, these gangs had done a lot of dirty things in the dark. If they met the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, not only would they not make friends with them, but they would also hide from them, afraid that they would be killed by these 5 stubborn guys. To put it in a dark way, the Azure Tiger Gang was even a little glad that the 5 heroes of Jiangdong were dead. If this group of people were to fight in River Sun Prefecture, if Chu Xiu was not dead, or if Chu Xiu was dead, would the Guanzhong torture room come looking for trouble with the local gang? This was something the Azure Tiger Gang was not sure about. Lin Nani snorted coldly and said, "Right now, Chu Xiu has brutally killed the righteous heroes of the Eastern Qi martial world and challenged the dignity of the Eastern Qi martial world. It's fine if the Azure Tiger Gang doesn't help, but now you want to stop us? Is the Azure Tiger Gang not a force of the Eastern Qi martial world?" As soon as he said this, all the martial artists present looked at the leader of the Azure Tiger Gang. He immediately broke out in a cold sweat and did not dare to say another word. This group of people had gone crazy. The leader of the Azure Tiger Gang retreated to the side and thought fiercely in his heart. These people should be happy when Chu Xiu taught them a lesson. They were so bored that they had to make trouble. The 5 heroes of Jiangdong were not your parents. Even if your parents were killed, you would not be so enthusiastic. If this matter really got out of hand, the Azure Tiger Gang would have to consider changing places to make a living. Anyway, they could not stay in River Sun Prefecture anymore. At this moment, a martial artist came in and said loudly, "Everyone, the news of Chu Xiu has come. He is coming to River Sun Prefecture." Previously in Yenzhou Prefecture, Feng Weiming, the head of the Feng family, is a good friend of Dong Xiangyi, one of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. He was going to find Chu Xiu and ask for an explanation. However, before he could finish speaking, Chu Xiu turned on him and seriously injured him. He was almost crippled. Hearing this, Lin Nani immediately said with righteous indignation, "Everyone has seen it. This Chu Xiu is really cruel and arrogant. Even Feng Weiming has been killed by him. So now, if we want to find Chu Xiu and ask for justice, and if we want to clear the name of the martial arts world of Eastern Qi, we have to unite as one. Only then can we subdue Chu Xiu." Seeing that everyone's emotions had been provoked to the extreme, Lin Nani, Yao Leshan, and the others looked at each other with a hint of pride in their eyes. If they succeeded, their reputation would surpass that of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. Chapter 313. Outside the River Sun Prefecture, as soon as Chu Xiu stepped into the city gate, he felt a strong murderous aura. The murderous aura condensed and did not dissipate. It could be imagined how many people in the River Sun Prefecture had the intention to kill him. However, Chu Xiu did not seem to notice it and stepped straight into the city gate. The land of Eastern Qi was prosperous, and there were many people in all the prefectures and prefectures. However, at this time, there was not a single person on the huge street of the prefectures, and even the surrounding shops were closed. The entire River Sun Prefecture was like a ghost city at this time, frighteningly quiet. Only the footsteps of Chu Xiu could be heard on the whole street. The murderous aura condensed in the air and did not dissipate. Even the sky became gloomy. At this time, a burst of footsteps and the sound of weapons colliding suddenly came. From the alleys on the street, countless warriors emerged and surrounded Chu Xiu. The murderous aura condensed into a substance in an instant and pressed down on Chu Xiao. At this time, on the top floor of a restaurant on the street, Xiahou Wujiang's personal maid, Chana, was holding a bowl of cheese in her hand and eating it in small bites. She looked at the scene below as if she was watching a play. She was Xiahou Wujiang's personal maid and also the person who slept with him. She was an existence that Xiahou Wujiang absolutely trusted, so she could be sent by Xiahou Wujiang to deal with this matter this time. Looking at Chu Xiao below, Chana's eyes also showed a touch of surprise. Her family's young master was an extremely proud and conceited person. Although he was usually arrogant, he also had the capital to be arrogant. He even looked down on the elders of the Xiahou clan. According to Xiahou Wujiang, if he only had this little cultivation when he reached the age of these elders and could only rely on his seniority to suppress others, then he would definitely be ashamed to the point of suicide. As a result, in the last God Weapon Conference, Xiahou Wujiang suffered in the hands of this Chu Xiao. It could be imagined what kind of person this Chu Xiao was. This time, Chan also had to admit that this Chu Xiao was indeed extraordinary. At least if it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to face the murderous aura of thousands of people at the same time and still remain calm. Looking at the people around, Chu Xiao's mouth twitched and said with a smile, "Such a big scene, it seems that everyone values me, Chu Xiao, very much." Lin Nani said in a cold voice, "Chu Xiao, you should know why we are here. You, an outsider, kill the righteous heroes of my Eastern Qi Wulin in the land. You are so arrogant. Do you really think that there is no one in the Eastern Qi Wulin of Wulin?" Looking at the people standing in front, Chu Xiao of clans Chu Xiao, Chu Xiao's as he can The person behind you dared to plot against me, why don't he dare to show himself? Lin Nani snorted coldly and said, "Who is behind us? I've received the kindness of the 5 heroes of the River East in the past, and this time, I'm here to seek justice for the 5 of them. Everyone here today is here because of the righteousness in their hearts. No one is instructing them, and no one can instruct them." Chu Xiao said lightly, "Seek justice? Oh, tell me, how do you want to seek justice?" Lin Nani said in a low voice, "It's very simple. Destroy your own martial arts, kneel before the tomb of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong for 3 years, and wash away your sins, and we will spare your life. The 5 heroes of Jiangdong do not like to kill, and I will not say anything about blood for blood. If it were someone else, you would not even have a chance to live." Crippling one's martial arts was no different from death, let alone making Chu Xiao, an outstanding talent on the Longhu list, kneel in front of his grave for 3 years. This was simply a humiliation. Chu Xiao would definitely not agree to it. Since he did not agree, then they had a reason to make a move. In the eyes of others, they had already given Chu Xiao the chance, and it was Chu Xiao who did not know what was good for him. He had no one to blame but himself. Chu Xiao shook his head and said, "Boring, really boring. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't you think it's tiring to come up with so many high-sounding reasons?" Raising his head, Chu Xiao's eyes flashed with a thick blood-red and demonic aura, as well as a trace of intense madness. "If you want to kill me to change your reputation, then come. Since you are all crying out for the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, then fine, I will send you all to accompany them in death." Lin Nani waved his hand and said coldly, "Stubborn fools! Don't hold back, let's attack together." When facing a ferocious person like Chu Xiao who had a notorious reputation, going up against him one-on-one was simply courting death. Only by joining forces and condensing formidable strength would they be able to annihilate him completely. Chu Xiao had been able to be so arrogant when he had fought against 100 people alone at the Mirror Lake. It was entirely because his opponents were a motley crew without a leader to command them. As a result, the strongest few among them had been killed by Chu Xiao. The others had been afraid and had directly fallen apart. This time, Lin Nani and the others had everything set up. It was like an inescapable net, and Chu Xiao would definitely not be able to escape. As soon as Lin Nani's voice fell, dozens of martial artists around Chu Xiao, led by the few of them, attacked together. In an instant, the saber aura and sword aura exploded. The power was so dazzling that it was impossible to see what they looked like. Although there were hundreds of people participating in the attack, those below the physical invulnerability stage were basically at the back. Only those above the physical invulnerability stage were qualified to attack. The most important thing was that the encirclement was only so big. At most, Dozens of people attacked together. If there were more people, it would be easy to hurt their own people. But it didn't matter. Anyway, they had a lot of people. If the people at the front couldn't beat them, then they would change to the people at the back. Each group was led by a martial artist of the 5 cheese collecting in the origin stage. Their plan was tight and interlocking. According to their expectations, Chu Xiao couldn't even last 3 rounds. This time, the danger that Chu Xiao would face was 100 times more difficult than the one on the Mirror Lake. Deep in the midst of countless saber aura and sword aura, Chu Xiao had completely emptied his mind. There was only one word in his mind: kill. After obtaining the Oblivion killing punch from the second prince, Chu Xiao had actually been using his free time to observe and practice it. However, he didn't officially start to use it. Even when he was killing the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, Chu Xiao didn't use it because it wasn't the right time. But now, in this scene, with the surrounding killing intent condensing, it was the best time to practice the Oblivion killing punch. This martial art was strange because it was useless to practice it in seclusion. It had to be practiced in the midst of killing. Moreover, the Oblivion killing punch was not just a punching technique. To be precise, it was a way to use killing intent. Entering the Oblivion killing realm, one would abandon all emotions in the world and only have the word kill. It was a realm where killing and fighting were displayed to the extreme. In this state, one's killing potential could be displayed to the peak during a battle, and one's perception would be enhanced to the extreme. It was simply like a killing machine. Of course, the side effects were not ordinary. After entering the Oblivion killing realm, one mistake could cause one to be unable to withdraw. One's mind would be completely eroded by the killing intent. One would either turn into an idiot or become a bloodthirsty madman due to the killing intent's backlash. Therefore, the second prince didn't practice this martial art after obtaining it, nor did he pass it down on a large scale. Only some of his subordinates who came from the military would have the ability to resist the killing intent's backlash after experiencing countless slaughters. Only then would they be qualified to be taught the Oblivion killing punch. But now, Chu Xiao had taken the initiative to enter the Oblivion killing realm. This was an adventure, but also a kind of cultivation. Countless dazzling astral blade chi and sword chi fell. Chu Xiao held the Duga seal in his hand. In an instant, the astral chi around his body condensed into a barrier, immovable like a mountain. The Duga seal, which could be called the ultimate defense, was on the verge of collapse under the bombardment of the astral blade chi and sword chi. But in the end, it didn't shatter. Just as the other martial artists were about to step forward, a black and red interweaving saber light slashed out. The Avicii demonic saber. Death's gate wide open. The last move of the 3 cuts of Avicii was the saber of judgment with a trace of divinity. When the saber fell, it fell forever. The martial artists who bore the brunt of the attack didn't even have time to react. They only had the strength of the physical invulnerability realm. When the saber fell, their bodies were instantly cut in half by the astral blade chi. Strangely, there was no blood flowing out of the wound. How dare you! 2 martial artists in the 3-flower realm attacked from behind Chu Xiao. These 2 seemed to be from the same sect. The sword momentum in their hands was exactly the same. When the 2 swords joined forces, their power doubled. Chu Xiao withdrew his saber and formed a seal. He actually used one hand to block the Great Vajra Wheel seal. At the same time, 2 powerful Great Vajra Wheel seals fell, directly blasting the 2 people back step by step. The long swords in their hands were also shattered. At this moment, a dazzling saber light fell. It bloomed with supreme light, suppressing the world and punishing evil. Yao Leshan's evil decapitator had already attacked. Among the martial artists present, there weren't many who could really pressure Chu Xiao. For example, the 2 sword cultivators in the 3-flower realm were actually very weak. They were at the bottom of the 3-flower realm. Not to mention the geniuses on the Longhu list, they were much weaker than Wu Tiandong of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. When facing Chu Xiao, they could only sneak attack from behind. If they fought him head-on, it was very likely that they would be killed by Chu Xiao in one move. Martial artists like Yao Leshan, who was in the 5 cheese gathering realm, had the strength to exchange a few blows with Chu Xiao. Yao Leshan wasn't weak either. He was also somewhat famous in the land of Eastern Qi. His evil decapitator was said to have originated from the Great Light Evil Decapitator of the Great Light Temple. When Yao Leshan was young, he once treated a severely injured old monk. After the old monk recovered, He taught Yao Leshan a saber technique, which was the Great Light Evil Decapitator of the Great Light Temple. However, Yao Leshan was still young at that time, so he didn't remember the saber technique completely. As a result, the saber technique was somewhat incomplete. Moreover, after he officially roamed the Jianghu, he also learned some of the taboos of martial arts. He didn't want to be too high profile, lest the Great Light Temple came after him. Therefore, he changed the Great Light Evil Decapitator to the Evil Decapitator. Although Yao Leshan's Evil Decapitator was incomplete, the slash still had the power to slay evil, which posed a great threat to Chu Xiu. Chapter 3:14. The Evil Decapitator slayed evil and destroyed demons. The supreme power of light on the blade had a great restraining effect on Chu Xiu's demonic qi. It was actually able to tear apart the demonic qi around Chu Xiu's body. However, at that moment, Chu Xiu turned around and formed a fist seal with his hand. Within the seal, a supreme brilliance bloomed. It was even more dazzling than the Evil Decapitator. The perfect precious vase seal fulfilled the wishes of all living beings and bloomed with supreme light. There was a loud bang. Amidst the dazzling brilliance, Yao Leshan's eyes revealed a look of horror. The powerful attack made him unable to stand steadily, and he hurriedly retreated. However, the two people behind Chu Xiu felt that their opportunity had come. Their eyes suddenly lit up. The long swords in their hands had been shattered by Chu Xiu's great Vajra wheel seal. However, at this moment, they both formed sword fingers and attacked Chu Xiu. However, at this time, Chu Xiu, who had already stepped into the state of selflessness, was extremely sensitive, especially to killing intent. The sword fingers of these two people had just blasted on Chu Xiu's shield of vigor. Before they could completely shatter Chu Xiu's shield of vigor, they were greeted by two great Vajra wheel seals that shone with supreme golden light. With a loud bang, two clouds of blood exploded. Chu Xiu didn't care about the sword fingers of these two people at all. He let them hit his body. At the same time that the shield of vigor around his body shattered, the two great Vajra wheel seals directly smashed the heads of the two three-flower realm warriors. The headless corpses fell to the ground. There was a moment of silence in the field. They knew that Chu Xiu was very strong, but right now, Chu Xiu's strength still made their hearts tremble. They had only exchanged a few moves, and several people had already died. Among them were two three-flower realm warriors. This kind of strength was already terrifying. Seeing this, Yao Leshan immediately shouted, "Attack together! Don't give Chu Xiu a chance to breathe. He's already injured." After taking on the sword fingers of two three-flower realm warriors, the sword qi entering his body did indeed make Chu Xiu look slightly pale. However, the strength of these two people was a little too weak. After the sword qi entered his body, it only took an instant for the power of the glazed golden silk goo to completely eliminate it. He was injured? What a joke! Under Yao Leshan's instigation, more than a dozen warriors charged toward Chu Xiu. However, before they could do anything, Chu Xiu's figure directly stared at Yao Leshan. The power of the internal binding seal burst out, and his figure rushed toward Yao Leshan like an arrow leaving the bow. Seeing Chu Xiu's action, Yao Leshan could not help but feel. The might of the perfect Aquarius seal had left a deep impression on him. Chu Xiu's strength was simply too terrifying. His explosive power was even stronger than a 5-Chi's origin realm warrior like him. However, he did not dare to hide because he was also one of the initiators of this matter. If he hid, not only would the morale of his people plummet, even if they managed to kill Chu Xiu in the end, he would not be able to get any fame. He might even be called a coward by the warriors of Eastern Qi. Therefore, Yao Leshan gritted his teeth and condensed his gang qi into one. The 5-Chi in his body circulated endlessly. In an instant, his saber body bloomed with boundless light. When the saber slashed down, it was as if the Buddhist sex Vajra was holding the Buddhist commandment blade, slaying evil and subduing demons. Although the saber momentum was shining with boundless evil qi, in fact, there was no killing intent in the saber intent. The boundless infernal devil qi in Chu Xiu's hands fused with his blood-refined divine wind, and it also fused with the boundless killing intent brought about by the selfless killing realm. Amidst the surging demonic qi, when Chu Xiu's saber landed, it actually gave off the sound of ghosts and gods roaring. It was exceptionally horrifying. The collision of light and darkness erupted into an endless storm. It was said that since ancient times, evil would never prevail over good, but now, Chu Xiu's demonic flames were monstrous and unparalleled. The light was surrounded by darkness, and in the boundless demonic qi, the light was completely extinguished. Yao Leshan's figure could not withstand this powerful force. His hands were trembling, and a thin crack appeared on the long saber. In an instant, the crack grew larger and larger, and finally with a loud bang, it shattered. Yao Leshan's saber was indeed slightly inferior. It was only at the 4th transformation level, and it was made by imitating the Buddhist commandment blade of the Great Light Temple. After all, he was a rogue cultivator, and he did not have much accumulation, so he was at a disadvantage in terms of weapons. At the moment when the weapon was shattered by Chu Xiu, Yao Leshan's figure was directly blasted away, and blood gushed out uncontrollably. More than 10 warriors at the back saw this scene and were instantly shocked. They exploded with all their strength, wanting to rescue him. However, Chu Xiu did not chase after them. Instead, he directly turned around and formed the wisdom fist seal with his hand. Within a radius of several dozen feet, everything was useless. The majestic Gang Qi confined the space. Under the wisdom fist seal's Gang Qi, the weaker the opponent was, the greater the suppression. Among the people who attacked, the strongest was only in the 3-flower realm. At that moment, all their movements became sluggish. As Chu Xiu's saber slashed down, heads flew, demonic qi drifted, and blood spilled. The scene was extremely bloody and evil. As the black and red saber slashed down, only 2 warriors in the 3-flower realm could still stand. The rest were all decapitated. The more than 10 headless corpses on the ground made the whole scene extremely evil. Even the whole long street was dyed red with blood. At this moment, large droplets of rain fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. Fresh blood mixed with the rain droplets and flowed like a small river, emitting an evil sense of beauty. The entire area was silent, and only Chu Xiu's slight panting could be heard, as well as the pitter-patter of the raindrops. Above the restaurant, Chaner's hand holding the cheese trembled, and half a bowl of cheese fell to the ground. Looking at Chu Xiu below, Chaner's eyes flashed with horror. She was Xiahou Wujiang's personal maid, and could even be said to be Xiahou Wujiang's confidant. Chaner was not a simple person either. She even had the cultivation of the inner aura realm. At her age, she was even more outstanding than some disciples from large sections. At this moment, she could naturally see how terrifying Chu Xiu was. Xiahou Wujiang had told her about the God Weapon Conference. To his own people, Xiahou Wujiang would naturally not deliberately belittle Chu Xiu and elevate himself. But the strength that Chu Xiu displayed now was more than 10 times stronger than he was in the God Weapon Conference back then. Only the heavens knew how Chu Xiu had managed to improve so much in such a short period of time. This kind of speed was simply frightening. In Xiahou Wujiang's heart, Chu Xiu was not his opponent. He was just someone who had offended him before. The reason why Xiahou Wujiang had set up this trap was also very simple. It was to vent his anger. But in Chaner's eyes, this Chu Xiu was definitely a great enemy of the young master. As long as Chu Xiu did not die this time, he would definitely be a great threat to the young master. At this moment, the killing intent around Chu Xiu's body had condensed into a substance. An invisible sharp killing intent lingered around his body. Even the raindrops near Chu Xiu's body were cut and torn into mist by his killing intent. There was no demonic qi in Chu Xiu's eyes. There was only the color of blood without any emotion. At this moment, Chu Xiu did not seem like a person. Instead, he seemed like a peerless murderous weapon with monstrous killing intent. Chu Xiu smiled at the crowd. Just when everyone present thought that Chu Xiu would say something, Chu Xiu's figure suddenly rushed toward Yao Leshan. This caused the expression of Yao Leshan, who was still vomiting blood, to suddenly change dramatically. His eyes revealed a look of horror. Lin Nani hurriedly shouted, "Go! Everyone go together!" Although Lin Nani was shouting, the warriors around him were all dawdling. Not a single one of them took the initiative to attack. Seeing this scene, Lin Nani's heart suddenly sank. They had miscalculated. In fact, their plan was not wrong. Even if the warriors in groups were to waste time, they could still exhaust Chu Xiu to death. Not to mention that Chu Xiu was only at the 3-flower realm. Even if he was at the unity of heaven and man realm, it would be difficult for him to survive in this situation. After all, human strength was limited, unless it was a martial arts grandmaster who had condensed the true martial Dan and could borrow the power of heaven and earth. As long as the true martial Dan was there, They could continuously refine the power of heaven and earth to provide inner breath. Only such an existence could fight against an army of 10,000 with the strength of one person without fear of consumption. Lin Nani and the others had miscalculated Chu Xiu's strength. It was a kind of strength that was beyond their imagination. The first group of people was almost instantly killed by Chu Xiu. That kind of terrifying scene was like a Jura hell, completely destroying the state of mind of the remaining warriors. Looking at the corpses on the ground, everyone present had a feeling that if they rushed up now, they would probably end up as miserable as the corpses on the ground. In order to beat someone, one had to first beat their guts. Chu Xiu's series of despairing killings had already killed 90% of the warriors present. The warriors who did not participate in the siege of Chu Xiu and only stood at the back to boost their momentum wiped their cold sweat when they saw this scene. If they rashly made a move, they would probably end up lying on the ground and becoming corpses. However, at the moment, these people were afraid and did not dare to make a move. Lin Nani and the others had to make a move. They were the leaders. If they were afraid and did not make a move, then this siege of Chu Xiu would really be a failure. If they won, they could gain fame and receive Xiahou Wujiang's reward. If they lost, however, their reputation would be lost, and they would even offend Xiahou Wujiang. This was a very bad deal. Therefore, in this battle, they could only win and not lose. Although Lin Nani was old, he still had the strength to fight. The long sword in his hand rippled with an ice-blue sword light. With a deep chill, it slashed straight at Chu Xiu. Its power was not small either. There was also a warrior in their group who had mastered the 5 cheese collecting in the origin realm. He held a long spear in his hand and took a step forward, thrusting his spear forward. In an instant, the long spear pierced through the air with the power of lightning. It was not weak. With 2 warriors at the 5 cheese unification realm making a move to intercept, even Chu Xiu could not ignore it. Yao Leshen's figure also quickly retreated, wanting to hide behind Lin Nani and the spear-wielding warrior. However, at this moment, all the killing intent on Chu Xiu's body froze in this instant. He did not retreat, but instead advanced. That fist fell, forgetting himself and forgetting the enemy, only his killing intent remained. Chapter 3:15. Chu Xiu had yet to truly display the might of the oblivion-killing fist. It should be said that he had yet to cultivate this martial skill to the entry level. This was because this martial skill could only be tempered in the midst of killing intent. During the battle just now, Chu Xiu had already entered the oblivion-killing realm. All his spirit was completely immersed in this boundless killing intent, maintaining a delicate balance between madness and rationality. At this moment, Chu Xiu had completely poured the killing intent condensed during the battle into his fist. All the stellar energy around his body seemed to have turned into countless sharp blades under the killing intent, slashing through the air and tearing everything apart. It was clearly a punch, but Chu Xiu had blasted out a sense of desperation like that of a magnificent army. Under the fist condensed from the soaring killing intent, Lin Nani's sword Astral Sword was completely shattered. His body could not withstand this power, and he hurriedly retreated. The spear-wielding martial artist wanted to resist, but his strength was inferior to Yao Leshen's. Under Chu Xiu's punch, the spear in his hand bloomed with the power of thunder, but the result was that he could not even resist for a breath's time. The spear shattered, and he himself was sent flying back, vomiting blood. If a person blocked, he would kill. If a Buddha blocked, he would kill a Buddha. The oblivion-killing fist that was formed after the oblivion-killing realm was condensed to the extreme, and no one could block it. Before Yao Leshen's horrified expression could disperse, the protective stellar energy around his body was shattered by Chu Xiu. The fist passed through his body like tofu, and a mist of blood drifted in the air. Yao Leshen's chest was directly blasted by Chu Xiu's fist, and finally, he fell to the ground with lifeless eyes. Chu Xiu's right hand trembled slightly, and a piercing pain came. His killing intent had also been released along with his punch, but the backlash of the killing intent was not as heavy as before. Although the power of the sky-extinguishing earth-extinguishing oblivion-killing fist had been unleashed to the extreme by Chu Xiu, the power was relative, and the backlash he received was not light. It was no wonder that ordinary cultivators were unable to cultivate the sky-extinguishing earth-extinguishing oblivion-killing fist. They could not even use it. The backlash from this cultivation technique was indeed not small. In fact, among the few cultivation techniques, the sky-extinguishing earth-extinguishing oblivion-killing fist had the greatest backlash. Once he entered the state of oblivion of slaughter, his killing intent would be condensed to the limit. Then, Chu Xiao would have to release it and stop killing with killing. Otherwise, the killing intent he condensed would cause him to suffer a backlash. Chu Xiao looked at the spear-wielding martial artist and activated the internal binding seal. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of the spear-wielding martial artist. The spear-wielding martial artist was horrified. His long spear had already been broken. At this moment, facing Chu Xiao, he blasted out a punch. Astral energy condensed on his arm. Although it was a punch, it was actually a spear intent. However, it was a pity that cowardice had already appeared in his heart. Those who used the spear as a weapon would definitely be unyielding and unparalleled in their attacks. However, at this moment, he was only thinking of temporarily blocking Chu Xiao and escaping for his life. From the moment he attacked, he had already lost. The great Vajra wheel seal crashed down. The seal technique and the fist technique rotated, and with a loud explosion, the martial artist's arm was instantly twisted and broken. He could not help but let out a muffled groan, and a look of horror appeared in his eyes. Although he was not proficient in fist and leg techniques, he was still a martial artist at the Five Qis gathering to the Origin Realm. But in terms of strength, he had been completely crushed by Chu Xiao. This martial artist was quite decisive. Seeing that he could not block Chu Xiao even if he attacked with all his strength, a trace of blood qi immediately appeared around his body. He was actually going to rely on burning his blood qi to desperately escape. Reputation was important, and so were benefits, but these things were not as important as his life. At this time, he could no longer care about Xiahou Wujiang's instructions. He only wanted to escape. But at this moment, Chu Xiao's eyes turned into a deep abyss. The soul-shifting technique of extinguishing heaven and extinguishing earth was displayed to the extreme, pulling his spirit into it and sinking him into the abyss. The soul-shifting technique of extinguishing heaven and extinguishing earth had a somewhat low impact on martial artists stronger than himself. But although this martial artist in front of him had a higher cultivation realm than Chu Xiao, he had already been scared out of his wits by Chu Xiao and was nothing to worry about. By the time he exhausted all his strength to break free from the soul-shifting technique of extinguishing heaven and extinguishing earth, what appeared in front of him was a boundless radiance. Perfect Aquarius seal. Bang! With a loud noise, the martial artist's body was directly blasted more than 100 feet away and fell into the crowd. His internal organs were directly smashed, and his body was already distorted beyond recognition. In the blink of an eye, 2 martial artists at the Five Qis toward the Origin Realm had died in the hands of Chu Xiao. No one had seen the scene where Chu Xiao killed the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, but most of the martial artists had always thought that the 5 heroes of Jiangdong had died under Chu Xiao's crafty plots. After all, no one had seen the process of Chu Xiao risking his life to kill Chang Buhui. But now, everyone believed that with Chu Xiao's strength, the weaker 5 Qis toward the Origin Realm martial artists simply had no power to fight back in front of him. Among the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, perhaps only Chang Buhui had the strength to fight Chu Xiao. Even Dong Xiangyi and Lu Tong were not a match for Chu Xiao in a one-on-one battle. Chu Xiao turned his gaze to Lin Nani, who had a horrified look in his eyes, and grinned. The heavenly demon dance in his hand carried a blood-red devil chi saber aura, and directly rushed toward Lin Nani. Seeing that Chu Xiao was coming for him, Lin Nani's heart was already extremely frightened. Previously, he had told Xiahou Wujiang that if he was alone, he would absolutely dare to fight Chu Xiao and avenge the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. In fact, those were just words to save face, and Lin Nani was still afraid of death. In his early years, he was a rogue cultivator, and he fought and killed in the Jianghu to build such a big family business. His methods could be considered decisive and ruthless, and he had killed many people and also offended many. In his later years, his temperament changed greatly, and he began to become kind to others and help those in the Jianghu. This was not because he had truly repented, but because he realized that reputation was actually more useful than ruthless methods. The more people he befriended, the more connections he could obtain, and the more his enemies in the past dared not to touch him. Although he was now old, he had already reached the 5 Qis toward the Origin Realm, and he still had a few decades to live. Lin Nani was not willing to die here like this. Seeing that Chu Xiao was coming for him, Lin Nani directly chose to burn his qi and blood, bursting out with his strongest speed, and directly fled into the crowd. In fact, at the moment, everyone was already scared out of their wits by Chu Xiao. Among the leaders, Yao Les Han, who was the strongest, and the 5 Chis toward the origin rail martial artist with the spear were both dead, but Lin Nani only wanted to escape. Even the leaders were like this, let alone the others. Seeing that Lin Nani was running towards them, the other martial artists immediately dodged. Of course, there were also those who did not dodge in time and were directly killed by Chu Xiu's blade from behind. Even if they were in the 3-flower realm, they would be seriously injured even if they did not die. In an instant, there was a burst of ghostly wails and wolf howls from the crowd. The scene was simply chaotic. Wherever Chu Xiu went, there was a mist of blood flying, which was extremely shocking. Above the restaurant, Chonner looked at the scene below and frowned. She lightly spat out 2 words. Trash. What was originally a matter that was almost in the bag turned out to be such a mess because of Lin Nani and the others. These people were really trash. Even if this kind of trash took the initiative to come to the Xiahou clan, the Xiahou clan would not be interested. Although part of the reason was that Chu Xiu was too strong, to blame failure on the enemy was a true display of cowardice. Seeing that the hundreds of people below were being chased away by Chu Xiu, Chonner could not help but shake her head. No matter how many people there were, they were still a motley crew. They could not achieve anything. This was also why most sects in the Jianghu relied on elites. It was said that the wind-sweeping tower had eyes all over the world, and there were hundreds of thousands of people. However, the wind-sweeping tower was still a peddler of information. The beggar sect was also known as the largest sect in the world, with more than 1 million members. You would never know which of the seemingly sloppy beggars on the street were real beggars and which were beggar sect disciples. In reality, if the beggar sect really relied on these beggars who could not eat their fill, it would have probably fallen apart a long time ago. The beggar sect really relied on the few elites in the main hall to support the few hundred people who gathered the strength of millions of members. In the past, the Kunlun devil cult actually only had a few thousand official disciples, but they were able to suppress the entire Jianghu with their demonic flames. This was already enough to explain everything. Mr. Feng, now that things have come to this, we still need to ask for your help. Originally, the young master did not want to ask for your help, but you also saw the scene before your eyes. Without your help, that group of trash will definitely lose. As soon as Chonner finished speaking, a middle-aged man with a cold expression suddenly appeared behind Chonner. He held a sword with both hands and said indifferently, "You know who I am. Now that I have to help, I reckon that I will not be able to work for the young master for a long time." Chonner said, "It's fine. Just go, Mr. Feng. I will talk to the young master. Recently, the young master has been in seclusion. Mr. Feng, you can also rest for a while." Mr. Feng nodded and said, "Since Miss Chonner said so, then I will go." This Mr. Feng was Xiahou Wujiang's man, not someone from the Xiahou clan. He was an expert that Xiahou Wujiang had recruited with his own strength. This time, when they were fighting against Chu Xiu, the power of the Xiahou clan could not be used, and Xiahou Wujiang did not want to use his own power either. This was because the identity of this Mr. Feng was a bit sensitive. If he were to make a move, then he would have to live in seclusion for a long time and could not show his face again. Therefore this time, Xiahou Wujiang did not intend to let him make a move. He had only sent Mr. Feng to protect Chonner, just in case. However, the current situation was a bit off. Lin Nani and the others were too useless. Chonner had also made her own decision to let Mr. Feng kill Chu Xiu. Anyway, Chonner was Xiahou Wujiang's personal maid, and Mr. Feng was just a guest. There was no comparison between the two. Since Chonner said that she would talk to Xiahou Wujiang after returning to the Xiahou clan, then Mr. Feng would just do as she said. Chapter 316. On the long street, raindrops mixed with blood flowed like a river, bringing endless fear to everyone. Wherever Chu Xiu went, almost no one under the 3-flower realm could withstand a single strike from his blade. Anyone who touched it would die. However, the problem was that it was useless even if they wanted to escape. Wherever Lin Nani went, Chu Xiu would follow. At this moment, everyone present wished that they could skin Lin Nani alive. Previously, this old fox had spoken vehemently and passionately, as if he wanted to fight Chu Xiu to the death. In the end, he was forced to flee in all directions by Chu Xiu. However, the problem was that Lin Nani was cunning. He ran to places with a lot of people and used them to help him resist Chu Xiu. It was true that he couldn't outrun Chu Xiu, but it was fine as long as he could outrun the others. His intentions were extremely sinister. Right at this moment, a ray of sword light shot out from midair. The sword light was very small, but it had boundless sharpness. It was as if nothing could resist that sword light. The moment the sword light fell, Chu Xiu was suddenly alarmed. He gave up on chasing Lin Nani and raised the heavenly demon dance in his hand. With a slash, the blood-refined divine power and the Avicii demonic chi fused together and sprayed towards the sword light. However, the seemingly inconspicuous sword light instantly defeated Chu Xiu's blood-refined divine power and the Avicii demonic chi. It slashed on Chu Xiu's heavenly demon dance, making a loud clang. Chu Xiu immediately took a few steps back, and the hand holding the sword was already trembling. A figure fell from mid-air and stood in front of Chu Xiu. His face was cold, and he held a sword with one hand. However, the sword was extremely strange. It was a thin sword. The blade was small and narrow, not even half the width of a normal long sword. It looked beautiful, like a sword used by a woman. Of course, the most important thing was that the person in front of him was actually at the oneness of heaven and human realm. He was an expert at the oneness of heaven and human realm in his prime. Seeing the appearance of this oneness of heaven and human realm warrior, everyone present was stunned. Under normal circumstances, there shouldn't be an expert at the oneness of heaven and human realm here. The reason was simple. The strongest of the Jiangdong Five was only at the Five Chi's origin realm. How could an expert at the oneness of heaven and human realm owe the Jiangdong Five a favor? However, at this moment, someone guessed the identity of the person in front of them and couldn't help but exclaim, "It's the Yu Maiden Palace disciple, Feng Wuling." Chu Xiu raised his head when he heard this. He had heard of this person before him. He should have known this person before. He should have been the only male disciple in the Yu Maiden Palace. The Yu Maiden Palace was one of the 5 great sword sects of the 5 sword heaven-splitting sword sect. It was also the only sword sect of the 5 great sword sects that was entirely female. It was said that the founder of the Yu Maiden Palace was a woman from the land of Wuxia in ancient times, which was the generation around the Wu County Luo clan. This woman didn't have a master, but her swordsmanship was natural. It was said that it was a gift from the heavens. She once used a bamboo pole as a sword to defeat many experts in the Jianghu. She was listed as one of the strongest swordsmanship masters in the Jianghu. She didn't leave her name, so people just called her Yu Maiden. Yu Nu didn't have a disciple. She only gave a few pointers to a little girl who was being bullied before leaving, her whereabouts unknown. After that little girl grew up, she made a name for herself in Jianghu and established the Yu Nu Palace, which eventually became one of the 5 great sword sections. The story of the Yu Maiden Palace was mysterious, and there was even a hint of a legend in it. However, the swordsmanship of the Yu Maiden Palace was indeed mystical. This was because Yu Maiden didn't leave behind a complete inheritance. The current Yu Maiden sword manual was written by the little girl after she became a martial Dao grandmaster. She used the swordsmanship left behind by Yu Maiden, as well as her own accumulation of swordsmanship as a foundation. Later generations of the Yu Maiden Palace's swordsmanship experts also perfected it one by one. This resulted in a special characteristic of the Yu Maiden Palace's martial artists. The strong were very strong, and the mediocre were mediocre. Those experts had comprehended the true essence of the Yu Maiden sword manual, the sword Dao left behind by the ancient sword Dao grandmaster Yu Maiden. That was why they had powerful swordsmanship cultivation. On the other hand, those mediocre martial artists comprehended the surface of the Yu Maiden sword manual. It was something added by the later generations of the Yu Maiden Palace's martial artists. Although it couldn't be said to be weak, it was still inferior to the essence of the Yu Maiden sword manual and the other sects' inheritance techniques. Because of this, the position of the Yu Maiden Palace among the 5 major sword sects was very unstable. It was sometimes at the top and sometimes at the bottom. Now, the Yu Maiden Palace was in a period of decline and was at the bottom of the 5 major sword sections. The background of Feng Wuling was also very interesting. The Yu Maiden Palace didn't accept male disciples, but he was the only male disciple of the Yu Maiden Palace. To be precise, he wasn't a disciple because the Yu Maiden Palace had never acknowledged him. Instead, they hunted him down everywhere, wanting to take back his martial arts. The disciples of the Yu Maiden Palace weren't allowed to marry. As long as they joined the Yu Maiden Palace, they would be a member of the Yu Maiden Palace for life. They only had swordsmanship in their lives. However, more than 10 years ago, a female disciple of the Yu Maiden Palace accidentally fell in love with an itinerant warrior and eloped with him. She even taught him the Yu Maiden Sword Manual of the Yu Maiden Palace. This person was Feng Wuling. Of course, the Yu Maiden Palace wouldn't ignore such a violation of sect rules. They sent disciples to kill the two of them and told the female disciple that as long as she was willing to return to the Yu Maiden Palace, they wouldn't cripple her martial arts. They would only imprison her, but Feng Wuling had to die. The final outcome of this matter was that the female disciple of the Yu Maiden Palace wasn't willing to completely break off relations with her sect. However, she wasn't willing to let Feng Wuling die either. Hence, she committed suicide and Feng Wuling became a wanderer. This matter caused an uproar back then, so Feng Wuling was very famous. Everyone thought that he had been secretly killed by the Yu Maiden Palace. No one expected him to appear here. Chu Xiao looked at Feng Wuling and said with narrowed eyes, "I have no enmity with you. For you to appear here, I'm afraid the person behind you can't take it anymore and is preparing to use his own strength to kill me. You've been chased by the Yu Maiden Palace for so many years, but you haven't appeared in the underworld for the past few years. There isn't even a trace of you. Clearly, someone is protecting you. Furthermore, looking at your aura, it's much stronger than when you were being chased. Clearly, you haven't stopped cultivating during this period of time. To be able to hide from the Yu Maiden Palace and protect you, and even give you so many cultivation resources, it seems like the person behind you is quite powerful." Chu Xiao's words caused everyone present to look at each other in dismay. Could it really be like what they had said before, that this matter was instigated by someone? Not only were the hot-blooded people who wanted to cause trouble for Chu Xiao, but there were also people who were here to watch the show. These people were very rational. After hearing Chu Xiao's words, their instincts told them that something was wrong, especially when Feng Wuling appeared. It was obvious that there was a conspiracy behind this matter. Feng Wuling said with an expressionless face, "I have no enmity with you, but I have taken someone's money to get rid of trouble. If someone wants to kill you, I can only use my sword. This is how the underworld works." When he was young, Feng Wuling was also a hot-blooded hero of the underworld. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen in love with a disciple of the Yu Maiden Palace and even betrayed her sect to be with him. But now, after being chased by the Yu Maiden Palace for so many years, Feng Wuling's blood had long turned cold, and his heart had long died. He had seen countless cruel things in the underworld. Now, Feng Wuling was just a sword that killed. Xiahou Wujiang could protect him from being found by the Yu Maiden Palace and provide him with cultivation resources. Therefore, he could kill for Xiahou Wujiang. Feng Wuling raised the thin sword in his hand. The sword in his hand was the Yu Maiden Sword, a special weapon of the Yu Maiden Palace. It was long and slender, like a bamboo pole. It was meant to imitate the bamboo pole that the Yu Maiden used to defeat all the experts in the world. Similarly, the Yu Maiden sword in Feng Wuling's hand was also the last memory left to him by his former lover. The sword light rose, and the wind and clouds broke. In an instant, the resplendent sword light condensed into a single point. The surroundings were silent, and when the sword landed, there wasn't even a sound of breaking through the air. But in an instant, it had already arrived in front of Chu Xiao. The sword arts of the Yu Maiden Palace were the strangest sword arts in the world. If one couldn't comprehend the core of the Yu Maiden Sword Manual, then the sword arts of the Yu Maiden Palace could only be considered mediocre. It was similar to the Ba Mountain Sword Sect and Azure Water Sword Sect, which cultivated sword arts, but were unable to reach the pinnacle of swordsmen. However, if one could truly comprehend the essence and true meaning of the Yu Maiden Sword Mantra, the might would surpass one's imagination. The simple sword moves were natural and seemed ordinary, but each move was a powerful unparalleled sword technique. There were thousands of disciples in the Yu Maiden Palace, but less than 1 in 100 could truly comprehend the essence of the Yu Maiden Sword Manual. Even when the Yu Maiden Palace was at its peak, there were only 100 of them. Feng Wuling's lover actually didn't comprehend the essence of the Yu Maiden Sword Manual. Instead, it was Feng Wuling, the man, who had comprehended it. To the Yu Maiden Palace, this could be considered a form of irony. That was why the Yu Maiden Palace paid such a huge price to hunt him down, not only because he fell in love with a female disciple of the Yu Maiden Palace, but also because he had learned the Yu Maiden Sword Manual and comprehended its essence. This was something that the Yu Maiden Palace couldn't tolerate. And now, when faced with Feng Wuling's sword, Chu Xiao, who bore the brunt of the attack, immediately felt an immense pressure. Right now, Chu Xiu was in between the 3-flower realm and the 5 cheese collecting in the origin realm. However, it wasn't that easy to break through, but his combat strength had already surpassed the 3-flower realm. Regular 5 cheese collecting in the origin realm were no match for him. Only martial artists at the level of Chengbu Hui could fight him. But against an existence at the unity of heaven and man realm, the gap in between was still not that easy to overcome. If the difference between the 3-flower realm and the 5 cheese collecting in the origin realm was like a small stream that could be crossed by those with long legs, then the difference between the 5 cheese collecting in the origin realm and the unity of heaven and man realm was like a huge river. Even swimming might not be able to cross it. Chapter 317. The 5 tiers of Qi controlling were divided into 3 levels. Internal and physical invulnerability were 1 level, while the 3 flowers and 5 Qis were another level. The final unity of heaven and man was a separate level. The fact that this level could be ranked as a separate level was already enough to prove the strength of the unity of heaven and man realm. Feng Wuling's sword strike was extremely simple. The gleaming sword strike was natural, as though the surrounding wind was avoiding him and accelerating the flow of this sword strike. Some people said that the Yu Maiden swordsmanship of the Yu Maiden Palace wasn't created by humans, but was a gift from the heavens. Almost everyone treated this as a joke. However, now that Chu Xiu had to bear the brunt of the Yu Maiden swordsmanship, he knew that it wasn't a joke. Chu Xiu formed the wisdom fist seal with his Gang Qi, covering heaven and earth. Feng Wuling's sword began to stagnate, as though it had pierced into a pool of water. However, at this moment, his wrist shook gently, and the thin sword moved. Layers of sword aura rippled out, like raindrops falling into a pond, bringing about layers of ripples. It seemed like a gentle breeze, but it completely shattered the Gang Qi field that Chu Xiu's wisdom fist seal had set up. Although the wisdom fist seal couldn't stop Feng Wuling's sword, Chu Xiu had already slashed out with the demonic dance. The last move of the 3 blades of Avicii shone with boundless demonic aura from hell and bloomed. It collided with Feng Wuling's sword, and a terrifying power erupted. On Chu Xiu's side, his blood and qi soared into the sky, and the demonic flames were monstrous. He looked extremely powerful. Even the 3 flowers and 5 qi's origin realm couldn't compare to Chu Xiu's power. On the other side, Feng Wuling had casually stabbed out with his sword. Even the sword qi was not that powerful. The clash between the blade and sword, which seemed to be of great disparity, produced a loud bang. The ground beneath Chu Xiu's feet shattered inch by inch, and he could not help but retreat. Both the demonic aura and the blood-refined divine power had been shattered by Feng Wuling's sword. On the other hand, Feng Wuling was standing on the same spot, not moving an inch. With just one move, it was obvious who was stronger. Facing Feng Wuling, Chu Xiu was still at a disadvantage despite using all his strength. Facing Feng Wuling, Chu Xiu was still at a disadvantage despite using all his strength. He had not seen many unity of heaven and man realm martial artists. The strongest among them should be Phaseless Demon Sect's Mr. Liu and Azure Dragon Society's Heavenly Sin Branch leader. Feng Wuling hadn't reached the unity of heaven and man realm for as long as either of them, so he wasn't much stronger than them. However, he wasn't much weaker than them. At the very least, he was much stronger than Han Dongel, the hanger-on of King and Liu, who died in the hands of Mr. Liu. In particular, Feng Wuling's Yu Maiden swordsmanship was simply unfathomable. The sword's momentum was natural, and while the power seemed ordinary, it was all-encompassing when he attacked. In terms of power, he crushed Chu Xiu in all aspects. Feng Wuling said, "You're strong to be able to block my sword while you're only at the 3-flower realm. What a pity." Feng Wuling didn't say what he thought was a pity, but everyone knew that Chu Xiu was still going to die today. Facing the unity of heaven and man realm at the unity of heaven and man realm wasn't as simple as a difference of 2 realms. Lin Nani, who was hiding on the side, wiped the cold sweat off his head. He was glad that he was still alive. At the same time, he was cursing Xiahou Wujiang in his heart. He clearly had Feng Wuling as his trump card, so why did he ask them to come? Anyway, Feng Wuling had been hunted down by the Yu Maiden Palace for so long. If he killed Chu Xiu now, it wouldn't be a big deal for him to be hunted down by the Guanzhong torture room. Lin Nani didn't know that Xiahou Wujiang had been using them from the beginning. Why would he let his own people do something that outsiders could do? At that moment, in the arena, Feng Wuling stabbed out with the Yu Maiden sword one after another. Every move was extremely simple. In the eyes of outsiders, it was such a simple stab. There were no changes in the flow of energy, nor was there an explosion of vigor. It was simply like child's play. How could this be called a sword technique? However, it was precisely this kind of childish sword technique that contained heaven and earth with every slash. It was graceful and free, completely suppressing Chu Xiao in terms of power. Another sword descended. The slender Yu Maiden's sword was as heavy as 1,000 catties, and the sword aura was like an antelope hanging its horns, making it hard to grasp. Chu Xiao slashed out with the demonic dance in his hand. However, the powerful blood-refined divine shield and demonic aura couldn't block this slash. He was sent flying for over 10 steps, and the arm that held the saber was already bleeding. It's over. Feng Wuling's voice was indifferent. His figure seemed to be hidden between heaven and earth. As he stabbed out with his sword, his body became one with heaven and earth. The wind that blew around him and the raindrops that fell from the sky all condensed into a sword and slashed at Chu Xiao. The Yu Maiden sword mantra was a gift from the heavens. The sword's momentum was naturally formed, and there were no fixed moves. The amount of power that could be unleashed depended entirely on the depth of one's understanding of the sword and the depth of one's understanding of heaven and earth. In the past, Yu Maiden could defeat all the experts in the world with a bamboo pole. The bamboo pole was a sword in her hand, and the wind and clouds in her hand were also swords. The disciples of the Yu Maiden Palace couldn't reach such a level, and Feng Wuling naturally couldn't either. However, he temporarily integrated his sword into heaven and earth, allowing everything around him to condense power for his sword. Such a level of comprehension was rare even in the Yu Maiden Palace. A strong murderous intent flashed in Chu Xiao's eyes. A blood mist condensed around him as he burned his vital energy and blood. The power of vital energy and blood condensed the murderous intent around him. At this instant, Chu Xiao punched out with a murderous intent that soared into the sky. There was no heaven and earth. Annihilating sky and earth, annihilating oblivion, killing fist. The strength condensed by this punch was even several times stronger than the punch Chu Xiao had used to kill Yao Leshan earlier. He discarded all his thoughts and obsessions and stepped into a true state of oblivion, and the might of this punch was sufficient to make everyone take notice of him. Disregarding life and death, there was only the word kill in his mind. This was the true oblivion killing punch of heaven and earth. The powerful fist intent tore the heavens and earth. If Feng Wuling's sword borrowed the power of heaven and earth, then Chu Xiao's punch tore the heavens and earth with his murderous intent. During the collision, the earth energy was shattered and the gale was torn apart. Even the raindrops evaporated into mist during the exchange between Chu Xiao and Feng Wuling. Chu Xiao's fist collided with the edge of the sword, and a stream of blood spurted out. The stellar energy on Chu Xiao's right arm was torn apart, and the sword wound extended from his fist to his shoulder. Chu Xiao's figure brushed past Feng Wuling's shoulder, and he stood over 100 feet behind Feng Wuling. Fresh blood flowed down his arm, and the killing intent in his eyes disappeared. However, his face was frighteningly pale. This could be said to be the most serious injury that Chu Xiao had ever suffered. His arm was almost crippled by Feng Wuling's sword. On the other side, Feng Wuling revealed a look of shock. He touched his chest, and a stream of blood flowed out from his mouth. The power of Chu Xiao's punch had actually been neutralized by his sword. However, there was one thing that couldn't be neutralized: the murderous intent that Chu Xiao had condensed. The murderous intent that entered his body was as cold as a blade, cutting his internal organs. However, it didn't matter. Murderous intent alone couldn't kill someone. The surrounding people were also dumbfounded. They looked at Chu Xiao as though they were looking at a monster. Although Chu Xiao had been defeated in the previous exchange, and he was severely injured by Feng Wuling's sword, he was almost crippled. However, Feng Wuling had actually been injured by Chu Xiao. One had to know that Feng Wuling was an expert at the oneness of heaven and man realm. Yet, he was injured while fighting with Chu Xiao, a warrior at the Three-Flower realm. What kind of concept was this? Perhaps it existed in the pugilistic world, but at least the people present had never heard of it. Feng Wuling wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and raised his sword. Just as he was about to attack, a crazy murderous intent suddenly appeared in his eyes. He was no longer as calm as before. He shouted at Chu Xiao angrily, "You deserve to die!" A crack suddenly appeared on his Yu Maiden sword, extending from the tip to the hilt. Although Chu Xiu's desperate attack by burning his blood essence couldn't kill an expert at the oneness of heaven and man realm, it wasn't that easy to resist. The murderous intent was like a blade. Although Feng Wuling's Yu Maiden sword was a fifth transformation precious weapon, it couldn't withstand such a powerful force. Hence, cracks appeared on it. Before this, Feng Wuling's attitude toward Chu Xiu was very indifferent because he had no enmity with Chu Xiu. He only killed Chu Xiu because it was a mission. He was Xiahou Wujiang's sword. Xiahou Wujiang had protected him for so many years, so he could kill whoever he wanted him to kill. However, the sword that his former lover had left for him, which was also the sword that he had entrusted all his heart to, had cracked from a punch from Chu Xiu. This made Feng Wuling furious, and he really wanted to kill Chu Xiu. The sword light flowed, and the originally calm sword aura revealed a hint of ferocious killing intent. As Feng Wuling stabbed out with his sword, the surrounding wind and rain froze and scattered to the sides along with the blade of the sword. It was as though they were opening up a path for Feng Wuling's sword. The enraged Feng Wuling attacked with all his might, and his power was several times stronger than before. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu seemed to have sensed something. He took a step forward, and the aura around him became extremely mysterious. The surrounding raindrops fell and the gentle breeze seemed to have some kind of rhythm. It was displayed in the most direct state in front of Chu Xiu. Those who were observing Chu Xiu suddenly realized that Chu Xiu's current state was very strange. He seemed to have become one with heaven and earth, but he was like a bystander, watching the movement of heaven and earth. That indistinct and indistinct state made people feel very stifled. Some people even felt a little uncomfortable just by looking at him. Heaven's sun gazing at air. It was unknown whether it was a sudden epiphany or the immense pressure between life and death, but the heaven's sun gazing at air that Chu Xiu had been painstakingly searching for but was unable to get to the beginner level actually made a breakthrough at this moment. Although it was only the beginner level, he could still use it with some difficulty. At this moment, in Chu Xiu's eyes, Feng Wuling seemed to be surrounded by threads. These threads were twisting, and they were the trajectory of Feng Wuling's attack. Looking at the sky, as long as he could find a loophole, Chu Xiu would still have a chance. Chapter 3:18. Chu Xiu's heaven's sun gazing at air was just a beginner's level. Naturally, he couldn't reach the great mastery level of the heaven's sun gazing at air's ability to predict heaven's secrets, which was comparable to the power of ghosts and gods. However, even if it was just a beginner's level, it was enough for Chu Xiu. Feng Wuling was indeed very powerful. Even under Chu Xiu's heaven's sun gazing at air, his sword aura was almost invulnerable. The natural Yu Maiden swordplay could be said to be a sword technique with the least flaws. It was a sword bestowed by the heavens. If one wanted to find its flaws, they would have to find the flaws of the entire world. Although there were no flaws in the sword technique, there were flaws in the person. Previously, Chu Xiu accidentally cracked the Yu Maiden sword in Feng Wuling's hand, causing him to lose his cool and fall into a violent rage. This was Feng Wuling's flaw, the flaw in his state of mind. The blade of the sword tore through the sky. Under that powerful might, the wind and rain were torn apart. The aura on Chu Xiu's body fluctuated. In Chu Xiu's eyes, lines condensed into Feng Wuling's trajectory. Even the vital energy around his body was constantly changing, reflecting in Chu Xiu's eyes. Now that Chu Xiu was severely injured, there was only one chance. Feng Wuling would die if he grasped that flaw. If he failed, Chu Xiu would die. Among those twisting lines, the anger and murderous intent in Feng Wuling's heart caused the center of his sword force to be the most unstable. At the moment when one of the lines twisted, Chu Xiu also made his move. His right arm was severely injured. With his left hand holding the blade, monstrous demonic aura condensed on the blade. The blood-refined divine shield was condensed to the extreme by Chu Xiu. His body took the initiative to collide with Feng Wuling. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. Could it be that Chu Xiu had gone mad? Was he sending himself to his death? However, the next scene was beyond their imagination. Chu Xiu's blade collided with Feng Wuling's sword. The blade slashed out at an extremely tricky angle. All the demonic aura gathered at one point and exploded. The Yu Maiden sword in Feng Wuling's hand suddenly shattered. No! Feng Wuling roared furiously, his eyes filled with endless madness. The Yu Maiden sword was the only remembrance left to him by his lover, as well as the only thing he could entrust his heart to. Now that it had been destroyed by Chu Xiu, he instantly fell into a frenzy. Although it was the same sword force of the Yu Maiden's sword, it was filled with endless anger and murderous intent. Although it was the same sword force as the Yu Maiden's sword, it was Chu Chu and Feng Wuling Wuling and Chu Xiu sword. With a Feng Xiu and Xiu Feng and blood Shan Feng and blood Feng Chu Xiu Shan and Feng S. and Chu Wu Feng Zais Chen and Chu Xiu Feng Chu Chin Chu Tu Chu Wu Xiu Ling Xiu. The arena was silent. A bloody hole appeared under Chu Xiu's ribs, and fresh blood was flowing out slowly. At the critical moment, Chu Xiu had used the Heaven Sun Gazing at Air spell to predict Feng Wuling's attack trajectory. He had forcefully shifted his position and condensed his qi of vigor. Therefore, only a bloody hole had appeared under his ribs. Otherwise, Feng Wuling's attack would have completely shattered Chu Xiu's heart. However, when they looked at Feng Wuling's side, everyone present gasped in shock. Feng Wuling stood on the spot with a pale face, and there was a bloody wound on his neck. Feng Wuling lifted his head, and a look of relief appeared in his eyes. Just as he was about to say something, fresh blood spurted out from his neck, and his body fell to the ground. Chu Xiu heaved a sigh of relief. He had won this round, but it was a fluke. The Heaven Sun Gazing at Air spell could only give Chu Xiu a chance. Whether or not Chu Xiu could grasp this opportunity depended on himself. Just now, he had used all his strength. After using the Heaven Sun Gazing at Air spell to identify Feng Wuling's loophole, he finally shattered Feng Wuling's qi of vigor with one slash, and the edge of his blade had narrowly slid across Feng Wuling's neck. He was really very lucky in this battle. In all fairness, Feng Wuling was very strong. If Chu Xiu had not managed to create a crack on his Yu Maiden sword, causing Feng Wuling to be enraged, Chu Xiu would not have been able to find his loophole. By the time Chu Xiu completely shattered Feng Wuling's Yu Maiden sword, Feng Wuling had already descended into madness. As a martial artist who had lost his mind, he was full of loopholes. The only difference was whether or not Chu Xiu could successfully grasp this loophole. Chu Xiu did not see Feng Wuling's final gaze. In fact, Feng Wuling's heart had already died after his lover committed suicide. Feng Wuling was just a walking corpse who only knew how to think about the past. Although he was not afraid of death, he did not have the motivation to live. Now that Chu Xiu had killed him, Feng Wuling could actually be considered a release for him. At this moment, Feng Wuling's death made everyone present fall silent. What did they just see? Chu Xiu actually killed a great expert at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm. A three-flower realm cultivator killing someone at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm was simply unheard of. At the very least, they had never heard of such a thing. This kind of strength was simply unimaginable. At this moment, everyone looked at Chu Xiu with horror in their eyes. Was he still human? Up in the restaurant, Chan'er's eyes were also filled with horror. When one's strength reached a certain level, it would make one ignore one's background. Chan'er had always thought that her master was the most outstanding. It was not like her master had never killed a martial artist at the Five Qis origin realm. Killing someone one level higher was definitely not difficult for Xiahou Wujiang. However, no matter how strong Xiahou Wujiang was, he was not strong enough to be able to kill a great expert at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm, especially when Feng Wuling was not an ordinary one. Even among the many martial artists at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm, Feng Wuling was considered an expert. With Chan'er's strength, she naturally could not see the danger in the battle between Chu Xiu and Feng Wuling, as well as the flaws in Feng Wuling's performance. Anyway, in the eyes of most people in the Jianghu, they only looked at the results and did not care about the process. They only saw that Chu Xiu killed Feng Wuling. It was that simple. Just now, Chan'er made the decision to let Feng Wuling kill Chu Xiu on her own. It was because she saw the threat Chu Xiu posed. Previously, Xiahou Wujiang did not take Chu Xiu seriously. He had only done this to vent his anger. However, after Chan'er saw Chu Xiu's performance, she knew that if Chu Xiu did not die, he would definitely become a great enemy of her master in the future. Therefore, even though Chan'er knew that Feng Wuling would easily expose himself, she still insisted on letting Feng Wuling kill Chu Xiu. Even if Feng Wuling's identity was exposed and he could not fight for a period of time, it was all worth it as long as he could kill Chu Xiu. However, Chan'er never imagined that Chu Xiu would be so strong that even Feng Wuling died in his hands. Chon'er had already made up her mind. After she returned to the Xiahou clan, she would definitely let her master use all his strength to kill Chu Xiao. Otherwise, if today's matter was exposed, Chu Xiao would definitely become her master's sworn enemy. With such an enemy, her master would definitely be in endless trouble in the future. At the same time, even though Chu Xiao was heavily injured, not a single person in the crowd dared to try and take advantage of him, and it was even to the extent that many people had fled in secret. At this moment, Chu Xiao was no different from a demon in their hearts. Who would dare to go forward and court death? At this moment, Chu Xiao looked at Lin Nani with a sinister murderous look in his eyes. It did not matter whether Lin Nani died or not. What was important was that he wanted to know who set up this trap today. In the battle with Feng Wuling just now, Chu Xiao could not hold back, and it was impossible for him to hold back. Fortunately, there was still Lin Nani alive to interrogate. Seeing Chu Xiao's gaze, Lin Nani suddenly shivered and turned to flee. Just now, he thought that with an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm coming forward, this matter would be in the bag, and Chu Xiao would definitely die. However, who would have thought that Chu Xiao was so abnormal that he could even kill an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm? If he had known earlier, he would have fled first. However, it was not too late to escape now. Chu Xiao had just fought with an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm, and he was also seriously injured. It was impossible for him to be as fast as before. In fact, it was indeed as Lin Nani had guessed. Chu Xiao's injuries were not light. Even the speed of the internal binding seal could not be unleashed to its limit. However, Lin Nani did not wait for him to run far before a warrior at the Three-Flower Realm suddenly rushed out of an alley and directly punched at Lin Nani. If Lin Nani was at his peak, he naturally did not care about a small warrior at the Three-Flower Realm. However, he was currently running for his life and did not expect someone to suddenly attack him. This caught Lin Nani off guard and made him block in a panic, but his body was involuntarily blasted a few steps back. The warrior at the Three-Flower Realm who attacked smiled proudly and said, "Old thing, you dare to be so arrogant in my River Sun Prefecture? Now you will suffer." The warrior who suddenly attacked was the local tyrant of River Sun Prefecture, the leader of the Green Tiger Gang. Previously, Lin Nani led a group of people to attack in River Sun Prefecture, not caring about the Green Tiger Gang at all. This had long since made him resentful. However, at that time, Lin Nani and the others were powerful, so he did not dare to say anything. Now, seeing how brave Chu Xiao was and how he beat the other party into a mess, the leader of the Green Tiger Gang did not mind hitting him when he was down. After being repelled by the sneak attack, Lin Nani did not have time to be angry. He felt a murderous intent coming at him, which made Lin Nani immediately feel bad. Before Lin Nani could turn around, a bright light had already bloomed behind him. The complete Aquarius seal. With a loud bang, Lin Nani was blasted and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he was immediately lifted up by his neck by Chu Xiao. Chu Xiao smiled at Lin Nani and said coldly, "You are very good at running. Why don't you keep running now?" Chapter 319. With a move of his body, Chu Xiao went straight to the restaurant. At this time, Chana was actually ready to escape, but she was blocked by Chu Xiao. This made her expression change suddenly, and at the same time, she secretly cursed Lin Nani and the others for being unreliable. But what was even more shocking was the result of Chu Xiao's battle. Chu Xiao looked in the direction that Lin Nani was pointing, and the corner of his mouth revealed a sinister smile. Then, he suddenly exerted force in his hand and directly crushed Lin Nani's neck. After killing two people to vent his anger, Xiahou Wujiang squeezed out two words from between his teeth, "Chu Xiao." After hearing that it was Xiahou Wujiang, Chu Xiao also had a strange expression on his face. To be honest, he really didn't think that this person would be Xiahou Wujiang. His own woman was killed by Chu Xiao. If Xiahou Wujiang remained indifferent, could he still be considered a man? Just now in the Heyang Prefecture, Chu Xiao was actually holding on. These two rogue cultivators thought about it and agreed. The Xiahou clan, one of the 9 great clans, casually squeezed out something from between their teeth, and it was enough for them to eat for a lifetime. Therefore, these two warriors also volunteered to bring Chaner's corpse to the Xiahou clan, and the others actually didn't fight for it, which made the two quite surprised. Chu Xiao said indifferently, "It seems that my deterrence is still not enough. Your Lin clan is in River East. Do you want to die, And you still want to implicate the old and young in your family? If you tell me, I will let your Lin clan live. If you don't, I will kill your whole family. Don't doubt me, this is not the first time I have done this. Lin Nani gritted his teeth and said, You really won't touch my Lin clan? Because it had been some time since the God Weapon Conference, he subconsciously thought that if Xiahou Wujiang wanted to retaliate against him, he would definitely have done it long ago, instead of dragging it until now. I, Chu Xiao, will do what I say. I still have this bit of credibility, Chu Xiao said indifferently. Several days later, within the Xiahou clan. Looking at Lin Nani, Chu Xiao said coldly, Tell me, who is the person who ordered you to do this? Chana was not only his personal maid, but also the person who slept by his side. However, Xiahou Wujiang did not have a proper wife, so Chana was only a maid. Otherwise, her identity would have been that of a concubine. Lin Nani thought for a while and finally seemed to have made up his mind. He said in a low voice, It was Xiahou Wujiang who contacted us secretly and asked us to provoke the emotions of the warriors of Eastern Qi to kill you. After the shock, their emotions turned into anger. In the end, it turned out to be Xiahou Wujiang, which really surprised Chu Xiao. Lin Nani stared at Chu Xiao in disbelief. Didn't you just say that you wouldn't kill me? You changed your mind in the blink of an eye? However, they did not expect that the person who made the move was actually Xiahou Wujiang. In their opinion, Xiahou Wujiang and Chu Xiao had a grudge, but the grudge between the two sides should not have reached such a level. It was rumored that Xiahou Wujiang would seek revenge for the smallest grievance and was narrow-minded. Obviously, this was indeed the case. As his voice fell, Chu Xiao looked in the direction of the restaurant, and his eyes revealed a ferocious killing intent. Xiahou Wujiang looked at Chana's corpse with an expressionless face, but the people around him could feel the soaring anger that was about to erupt from Xiahou Wujiang's body. In that Azura-like massacre just now, Chu Xiao had completely killed their guts. Not to mention that Chu Xiao still had the strength to fight. Even if Chu Xiao was lying on the ground and looked like he was about to die, it was estimated that not many people would dare to go forward to test him. Chu Xiao's seemingly calm words made Lin Nani shiver all of a sudden because he knew that what Chu Xiao said was true. He had killed 3 Five Chi's origin realm martial artists in a row, as well as several Three Flower realm martial artists in the Three Flower realm and a group of martial artists from the Three Flower realm. He had killed hundreds of people on his own, which was shocking enough. After leaving River Sun Prefecture, Chu Xiao suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and an abnormal flush emerged on his pale face. His face was still pale, and anyone could see that Chu Xiao was seriously injured. However, none of the warriors present dared to follow Chu Xiao, let alone hit him when he was down. Looking at Chu Xiao's murderous face, Chana hurriedly said, Chu! In fact, some people had already instigated the anger of the Eastern Qi warriors before, and some people with a clear mind had already seen that someone was definitely plotting this. Now, it seemed that it was indeed the case. However, things were a little different from what they had imagined. Xiahou Wujiang had been looking at the corpse for a while, but he had no intention of rewarding the two of them, which made them a little anxious. This person was quite famous in the Zhonghu a few years ago, and he was also a well-known existence among the many Unity of Heaven and Man realm warriors in the Zhonghu. In the end, he died at the hands of Chu Xiao, and at the hands of a Three Flower realm warrior in the Three Flower realm. How could this not make everyone exclaim? Standing opposite Xiahou Wujiang, the two lone cultivators who had not yet reached the innate realm looked at each other, and they were both a little anxious. Lin Nani's face was full of despair as he was held by the neck by Chu Xiao. There was a hint of struggle in Lin Nani's eyes. Say it. How could it be so simple? If he said it, would Xiahou Wujiang let them go? Chu Xiao's most serious injury was not external, but internal. However, Chan could not think so much at this time. As Chu Xiao pulled out the heavenly demon dance, Chan'er's corpse fell to the ground, causing the people around to shiver. One of the warriors mustered up the courage to ask, Young Master Xiahou. However, what was even more shocking was that Chu Xiao had actually killed Feng Wuling, the mortal sword. When Chan'er regained consciousness, the pitch-black heavenly demon dance had completely pierced through her. Large amounts of blood flowed from her mouth, and Chan'er's eyes were full of disbelief. At this moment, Xiahou Wujiang's hatred for Chu Xiao had reached its peak, and he wanted nothing more than to swallow him alive. As soon as she said this, the surrounding warriors were all horrified. It turned out that this matter was really instigated by someone in the dark. As soon as she said this, she saw Chu Xiu's gaze instantly turn into an abyss, completely pulling her spirit into it. Previously, there were people who said that Chu Xiu's reputation in Eastern Qi was even greater than his reputation in Northern Yan and Guangzhou. After this incident, everyone could almost confirm this point. After killing Feng Wuling, Chu Xiu was already somewhat exhausted. Chu Xiu threw Lin Nani's corpse to the side and said indifferently, "I only said not to destroy your Lin clan, but I didn't say not to kill you." Feng Wuling's sword finger had blasted a bloody hole in Chu Xiu's ribs, but there was sword aura entering his body and entrenched in Chu Xiu's meridians, tearing them apart continuously. It would probably take some time for it to be cleared. After saying this, Chu Xiu's figure slowly left the long street and walked out of River Sun Prefecture. She could not believe that Chu Xiu had killed her without even listening to a word from her. Did Chu Xiu not know her identity? Xiahou Wujiang. Of course, what made them even more horrified was Chu Xiu's attitude. When Lin Nani saw that Chu Xiu did not speak, he thought that Chu Xiu did not believe him. Lin Nani hurriedly said, "What I said is true. Xiahou Wujiang's maidservant, Chan Er, is observing this from that restaurant." Therefore, after receiving the news, Xiahou Wujiang did not care about the strength displayed by Chu Xiu, nor did he care about the dead Feng Wuling. Right now, he could not wait to immediately cut Chu Xiu into 1,000 pieces. While Chu Xiu was recuperating, news of what happened in River Sun Prefecture also spread, and it immediately caused a stir in the Eastern Qi martial arts circle. Since they wanted to kill Chu Xiu, they had naturally studied Chu Xiu's information. Whether it was during the period of the Blue Dragon Society or the period of the Guangzhou torture room, it was not the first time that Chu Xiu had destroyed an entire family and clan. He would really do what he said. This time, they were actually played like monkeys and came here to seek death from Chu Xiu. How could they not be angry? Chu Xiu killed such a beautiful woman just like that. He was really cruel and merciless. River Sun Prefecture was not a place to recuperate, and Chu Xiu's current injuries could no longer support him on his journey. Therefore, Chu Xiu forced himself to find a deserted mountain, blasted a cave, and temporarily recuperated in it. They were the ones who brought Chan Er's body back. It was precisely because Chu Xiu said that as long as they brought Chan Er's body back to the Xiahou clan, they would definitely be rewarded. That was why they made this trip. Therefore, Chu Xiu previously guessed that it might be the crown prince or the second prince who did it. They had the reason and the ability to cause such a big movement in such a short period of time. This woman was Xiahou Wujiang's person, but in the end, Chu Xiu killed her just like that. He didn't even give her a chance to say a word. One could imagine how Chu Xiu's attitude towards Xiahou Wujiang and the Xiahou clan was. He really wasn't afraid of fighting to the death with the Xiahou clan. Just as his words left his mouth, Xiahou Wujiang waved his hand. In an instant, 2 beams of golden light poured into the bodies of these 2 people. With a loud explosion, the heads of these 2 people directly exploded from the stellar energy imbued with powerful psyche. Chu Xiu flung the blood off his saber, pointed at Chan Er's body, and said indifferently, "If any of you have the time, send her body to the Xiahou clan. Xiahou Wujiang will give you a lot of money. Also, help me pass a message to Xiahou Wujiang. Since he wants to play, then I, Chu Xiu, will play with him to the end. Let's see who can play the other to death in the end." The Yu Maiden sword mantra was powerful. As long as one comprehended its essence, the might of its sword Dao was simply beyond imagination. However, it was useless to be angry. The other party was the most outstanding genius of this generation of the Nansong Xiahou clan. Even if they, these poor wandering martial artists, were played by him, they could only endure it. How could they go and find Xiahou Wujiang to ask for an explanation? However, Chu Xiu couldn't show the slightest bit of weakness. Otherwise, he couldn't be sure if someone would hit him when he was down. The headless body fell to the ground. Perhaps it was only at the moment before they died that they knew why no one fought with them over it. Who would fight over something that was sending themselves to death? Chapter 320. Xiahou Wujiang's reputation in the Xiahou clan wasn't very good. Everyone knew that this young master was narrow-minded and had a bad temper. Normally, they would hide from Xiahou Wujiang, not to mention at a time like this. So when Xiahou Wujiang was furious, the servants of the Xiahou clan all hid far away, for fear that they would be like those 2 idiots and give Xiahou Wujiang a chance to vent his anger. At this time the door of the courtyard was opened, and Xiahou Wujiang turned around and scolded, "Get out!" But before he could scold, he forcibly swallowed it back, because the middle-aged man in a brocade robe who pushed open the door was the clan leader of the Xiahou clan and also Xiahou Wujiang's father, Godling Yun Xiahou Zhan. This generation of the Xiahou clan was full of heroes. Xiahou Zhan's aptitude was mediocre when he was young, and he wasn't valued at all. He only stepped into the innate realm in his 20s, which was considered fast compared to other martial artists, but in the Xiahou clan, it could only be said to be mediocre. But after stepping into the innate realm, Xiahou Zhan amazed everyone with a single brilliant feat. It was as if he had no bottlenecks, and he crossed the 5th level of the Qi-controlling realm all the way to become a martial arts master. Moreover, he also displayed his incomparably skilled skills, as if he was crushing all his opponents at that time, and became the clan leader of the Xiahou clan. Seeing Xiahou Wujiang's appearance, Xiahou Zhan said indifferently, "What, can't afford to lose? Are you going to do it yourself?" Before Xiahou Wujiang could speak, he saw Xiahou Zhan's gaze instantly turn gloomy. "What did I teach you back then? If you don't kill a snake, you will be harmed. If you want to deal with someone, you either don't make a move, or if you make a move, you must completely defeat the other party in one blow. But what about you? You always do things with a joking mind, and you don't put anyone in your eyes. Do you really think you're invincible in the younger generation? Or do you think that my Xiahou clan is the former Kunlun devil cult that can suppress the world, and you don't put anyone in your eyes?" Xiahou Wujiang was just about to defend himself when Xiahou Zhan shouted, "You still dare to quibble?" Xiahou Wujiang's mouth moved. He was scolded without saying a word. If he really dared to defend himself, Xiahou Zhan would probably directly slap him. With a cold snort, Xiahou Zhan said, "Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You're too talented, and you've been too successful since you were young. This has also led you to look down on everyone. I warned you when you offended Mo Tianlin because of that girl from the Luo family. After all, Mo Tianlin is a disciple of the Mo family of Shangyang. Mo Tianlin is inferior to you now, but what about in the future? Although some people were not your match in a direct confrontation, if they wanted to hit you while you were down, they would definitely bring you big trouble. Chu Xiu's ranking on the Longhu roll is above yours." After the Divine Armament meeting, he became the most outstanding disciple of the Guanzhong Punishment Hall's younger generation, and Guan Siyu thought highly of him. He is now the Guanzhong Torture Room's patrol inspector, and he will be the torture officer in the future. How do you know that he won't become the hall master of the Guanzhong Torture Room in the future? Because of your actions, you will offend a big shot of the Guanzhong Torture Room in the future, and cause our Xiahou clan to have a grudge with the Guanzhong Torture Room. After saying so much, you are good in every way, and you are qualified to be the future heir of our Xiahou clan. But there is one thing that is your weakness, and that is arrogance. It's not a problem for ordinary people to be arrogant, but as the heir of the Xiahou clan, one of the 9 great clans, arrogance will kill you." Xiahou Zhan's words made Xiahou Wujiang break out in a cold sweat. Normally, he would not take Xiahou Zhan's words to heart, but now, combined with the matter of Chu Xiu, Xiahou Wujiang also found that he was indeed a little arrogant this time. He did not regard Chu Xiu as an opponent, and he only wanted to teach him a lesson. But the result was self-defeating. Chana was dead, and so was Feng Wuling. Not only did he fail to accomplish his task, but he also completely formed a grudge with Chu Xiu. It could be said that he suffered a double loss, and did not get any benefits. Xiahou Wujiang said in a low voice, "Then father, what should we do now?" Xiahou Zhan snorted coldly and said, "You have the nerve to ask me what to do? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you've caused this time? You secretly instigated the warriors of Eastern Qi to make a move against Chu Xiu. Although the ones who were affected were those rogue warriors, and there were no real big shots, it also affected the reputation of the Xiahou clan. Now that you have made a move, the news has probably spread to the Guanzhong Torture Room. If you dare to make a move again, it will be like slapping the face of the Guanzhong Torture Room and then throwing it into the mud and stepping on it. At that time, I guess Guan Siyu will personally come to the Xiahou clan to ask for an explanation. If you can face Chu Xiu squarely and kill him in one go, then the trouble will only be temporary, and I will help you deal with it. But in the end, you failed, and instead let Chu Xiu show off his power. Then this trouble will be long-term. At least for now, you can't touch Chu Xiu anymore. Also, the Yu Nu Palace is also a problem. You really have the guts to dare to recruit people like Feng Wuling. Even I don't know about this matter. It's not like you didn't see how the Yu Nu Palace chased after Feng Wuling in the past few years. After this matter, although Feng Wuling is dead, the Yu Nu Palace has already come to the door and wants the Xiahou clan to give them an explanation. After all, those women are not big-hearted. Your matter this time has already caused the elders to be very dissatisfied. From today onwards, you will go to the ancestral hall to cultivate in seclusion. Without my permission, you are not allowed to see anyone, and you are not allowed to take half a step out of the ancestral hall. After saying that, Xiahou Zhan snorted coldly and turned to leave. In fact, Xiahou Zhan was not so angry in his heart. This matter might be a good thing for Xiahou Wujiang. Xiahou Zhan had been quiet for a long time, and his state of mind and potential had been polished to perfection. This was why he could amaze the world with a brilliant feat and catch up from behind. On the other hand, his son was the exact opposite. He was born a genius and had never suffered any setbacks or hardships in his life. This also led to the defect of his arrogant character. If the matter of Chu Xiu could make Xiahou Wujiang reflect thoroughly and change this bad habit, it might be a good thing. The Battle of River Sun Prefecture caused a lot of noise in eastern Qi, but in the end, it was still suppressed by the Xiahou clan. Anyway, Chu Xiu did not die in the end, and the Guanzhong torture room could not cause trouble for the Xiahou clan with great fanfare just for Chu Xiu. As for the Yu Nu Palace, the Xiahou clan also used some unknown method to settle the matter. In short, the matter was temporarily peaceful. Half a month later, Chu Xiu also walked out of the cave where he cultivated in seclusion. Squinting at the sun above his head, Chu Xiu's face was still pale at this time. Although his injuries were healed, his vitality was not so easy to recover. This time, the injuries Chu Xiu suffered were also a little serious, so after returning to the Guanzhong torture room, he also had to continue to cultivate in seclusion for a period of time, so that he could completely recover his vitality, and also try to break through the 5 Qis collecting in Origin Realm. After coming out of seclusion, Chu Xiu also specially inquired about the matter regarding the Xiahou clan. After learning that Xiahou Wujiang was grounded and that the Xiahou clan had completely suppressed the disturbance, Chu Xiu also understood that this matter should be Xiahou Wujiang's own decision, and the Xiahou clan did not participate in it. Otherwise, if the Xiahou clan wanted to kill him, Chu Xiu would not have escaped so easily, and the Xiahou clan would not have let go so easily either. Just as Chu Xiu was preparing to return to the Guanzhong torture room, just as he appeared in the prefecture government, someone took the initiative to come to the door, and this person was something that Chu Xiu did not expect. The person who came turned out to be the Guangdong torturer of the Guanzhong torture room, Million Swords Flow Xiao Yi. Seeing Xiao Yi coming, Chu Xiu could not help but ask curiously, "Why are you here, Lord Xiao?" The corner of Xiao Yi's mouth had a faint smile, and he said, "How could the Guanzhong torture room not know that you caused such a big mess in Eastern Qi? You are the most outstanding young disciple of the Guanzhong torture room of this generation. If the Guanzhong torture room did not even have the slightest bit of response, it would be a little too much. In order to prevent the Xiahou clan from making another move, I came to receive you, but who knew that you would hide yourself? I have been looking for you for many days, and only when someone said that you had appeared here, did I rush over." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Thank you, Lord Xiao, for your help." At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something and asked, "Lord Xiao, did the hall master send you this time?" Chu Xiu was a little puzzled, because Xiao Yi did not seem to have any relationship with him. If someone had come, it should have been Wei Zhuoduan, who was his superior. Chu Xiu vaguely guessed something, and he could not help but sneer in his heart. Xiao Yi was stunned, but then he smiled and said, "It is said that you are not on good terms with your superior Wei Zhuoduan, so I can't be bothered to cover for him. The hall master said in front of the 4 of us that he was going to send someone to receive you, so this person was indeed sent by Wei Zhuoduan. However, the older one gets, the more afraid they are of death. That old fellow Wei Zhuoduan was probably worried that the Xiahou clan would continue to make a move, so he pretended that he did not understand the hallmaster's intentions. Thus, the hallmaster could only send me. Who asked me to be so free during this period of time?" When Xiao Yi revealed the matter, Chu Xiu was actually not angry. In any case, he and Wei Zhuoduan had completely fallen out because of the Wei and Zhang clans. However, he really did not expect that Wei Zhuoduan would dare to play such a trick in front of Guan Xiyu. He reckoned that his position in Guan Xiyu's heart would definitely plummet. After all, as a superior, Wei Zhuoduan had even made excuses to save his subordinate. One could imagine what he would do in the face of the Guanzhong torture room's crisis. It was fine to have some selfish motives and play some tricks, but when it came to the Guanzhong torture room's reputation, Wei Zhouduan actually dared to do such a thing. He really did not know what was good for him. Of course, it was also possible that Wei Zhouduan knew that he was about to retire, so a dead pig was not afraid of boiling water. So what if Guan Xiyu had a good impression of him? Could she still keep him in the Guanzhong torture room? Chapter 321. Chu Xiu didn't continue asking about Wei Zhouduan. After all, he wasn't that familiar with Xiao Yi, and some things weren't easy to talk about. However, Xiao Yi was very talkative. He patted Chu Xiu's shoulder and said, "Xiahou Wujiang schemed against you this time. Although it's a personal grudge between the two of you, Xiahou Wujiang's methods are a bit too dirty. You're from the Guanzhong torture room, and Xiahou Wujiang slandered you. That's the same as slandering the Guanzhong torture room. However, although Master Guan wants to interfere in this matter, he can't do so. The Guanzhong torture room has been dealing with internal affairs all these years, so it's not that famous in the pugilistic world. At least, it's not as famous as the Xiahou clan, which is one of the top 9 aristocratic families. In addition, the Xiahou clan stopped in time, so Master Guan is prepared to let this matter go." Chu Xiu nodded. He didn't feel that it was unfair. Big forces were like this. They were thinking about giving in and compromising with each other. Moreover, he had heard that even the Yu Palace had appeared to demand an explanation from Madame Xiahou, but they had been dealt with by Madame Xiahou. In that case, even if he went to the Guanzhong punishment hall, it would be useless. At this time, Xiao Yi suddenly stared at Chu Xiu and said, "To be honest, I kind of want to fight with you now. You know my background. I used to be a disciple of the Sitting Sword Hut, and Feng Wuling's inheritance is in the Yu Palace. Back when the Yu Palace was chasing after him, I wanted to find a chance to fight with him and have a taste of the Yu sword. It was very unpleasant to fight with those women from the Yu Palace. Now that a man has finally come, I've wanted to try it for a long time. I didn't expect Feng Wuling to be killed by you once he appeared after disappearing for so many years. Now I want to fight with you." Chu Xiu smiled bitterly and said, "Don't tease me, Lord Xiao. Don't you know how strong I am? Feng Wuling did die in my hands, but I won that battle by sheer luck. There was a loophole in Feng Wuling's heart, and it was a huge loophole. In that battle, I completely tore apart the hole in his mental state, and only then was I able to seize the last chance to kill him. If Feng Wuling was at his peak, I wouldn't have the slightest confidence in killing him. In fact, I don't even know if I could escape alive from Feng Wuling." Xiao Yi smiled and said, "Don't be humble. Being able to find loopholes is also a kind of ability. If it were someone else, they wouldn't be able to find any loopholes even if they searched for all the detailed information on Feng Wuling. Even if they found them, they wouldn't have the ability to do so." Chu Xiu cupped his fists and said, "Lord Xiao is overpraising me." After exchanging a few more pleasantries, the two of them set off, ready to return to the Guanzhong torture room. Xiao Yi was a little lazy and talkative, always taking the initiative to talk to others. However, he got along well with Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu was also from the Forgetting Sword Hut, one of the 5 major sword sects, and had a unique understanding of martial arts. Although Chu Xiu was only at the 3-flower realm, his combat strength was extremely shocking. He could have a good chat with Xiao Yi on this point. Of course, this was also due to Chu Xiu's killing of Feng Wuling. Otherwise, Xiao Yi wouldn't have been interested in talking so much with an ordinary 3-flower realm martial artist. Nothing happened on the way back to the Guanzhong torture room. Since the Xiahou clan had already decided to completely suppress the matter, they naturally wouldn't come out and cause trouble again. After returning to the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu was surrounded by the martial artists who came and went from the Guanzhong torture room. The Guanzhong torture room had been quiet for so many years, and there were actually not many people who could really make a name for themselves in the martial world. For example, the torture officers and the leaders of the Guanzhong torture room were actually not weak. For example, Xiao Yi and Si Ming. In Chu Xiu's opinion, their strength was definitely not weaker than experts at the level of Mr. Liu and the Heavenly Sin branch leader. However, they were very low-key and unknown in the martial world. In the end, Chu Xiu, a disciple of the younger generation, made such a big name for himself in the martial world. This was somewhat unexpected to many. Of course, most of the martial artists in the Guanzhong torture room looked at Chu Xiu with kind eyes. No matter how bad Chu Xiu's reputation was outside and how many people scolded him, at the very least, Chu Xiu was a member of the Guanzhong torture room. He also represented the Guanzhong torture room in the martial world. This also made the constables of the Guanzhong torture room feel proud. As for those who were jealous, although there were people, they were still in the minority. After all, Chu Xiu's current achievements were a little too great. As long as one wasn't an idiot, they should know how big the gap between them and Chu Xiu was. Jealousy? It was basically a joke to say it out loud. Xiao Yi brought Chu Xiu to the main hall to report. Not only was Guan Siyu there, but the other 3 torture officers were also there. Xiao Yi walked into the hall and said with a smile, cupping his hands, "Hallmaster, I was fortunate enough to not let you down. I went through a lot of trouble to bring Chu Xiu back. I completed such a big task. You should at least give me some reward, right?" Guan Siyu knew Xiao Yi's character. When he heard this, he only said lightly, "Some people from the Miaojiang of West Chu want to use the land of Guanzhong to open up a trade route to northern Yan. They are going back and forth with the Guanzhong torture room. I will reward you to negotiate with them. How about that?" When Xiao Yi heard this, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Forget it. Those guys from the Miaojiang are famous for being difficult. I don't want to deal with them." Xiao Yi joked, but the atmosphere in the hall was a bit strange. As Chu Xiu's superior, Wei Zhouduan should have gone up to greet Chu Xiu when he returned. However, he didn't say a word. He looked at Chu Xiu with deep fear. Previously, because of the Wei family's matter, Wei Zhouduan had already fallen out with Chu Xiu. But at that time, Chu Xiu had the general trend. Even though he was Chu Xiu's superior, he couldn't even think about punishing Chu Xiu. Therefore, the matter could only be left unsettled, allowing Chu Xiu to grasp the business lifeline of the entire Guanxi region. Wei Zhouduan could do nothing about it. Originally, Wei Zhouduan was prepared to wait for Chu Xiu's general trend to dissipate before teaching Chu Xiu a lesson. He wanted him to know what it meant to respect his superiors and subordinates. However, he didn't expect that Chu Xiu would become even more famous after going out. There were even rumors that he had killed a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. This made Wei Zhouduan extremely fearful. He also put away the thought of teaching Chu Xiu a lesson. However, he was still unwilling to concede to a subordinate like Chu Xiu when he was about to retire. This could be considered an obsession of Wei Zhouduan. Therefore, even in front of Guan Siyu, he still acted like this. He couldn't even be bothered to put on an act. As for Yin Botong, ever since Chu Xiu entered the hall, he had been glaring at him fiercely. At this time, he even stood up and coldly snorted. "Chu Xiu, today, the hall master and the other disciplinary officers are here. I want to ask you, how did my disciple Wang Qianping die? If you don't give me an explanation, this matter will definitely not end." Yin Botong had endured this matter for a long time. Cheng Zhouhai and the others had returned safely. They had even brought back merits and benefits. In the end, his disciple Wang Qianping had died in Eastern Qi. How could Yin Botong tolerate this? Cheng Zhouhai's position was absolutely neutral. He didn't side with Wang Qianping, nor did he side with Chu Xiu. He just recounted what had happened. It was true that Wang Qianping had been killed by a phaseless demon sect martial artist. However, Wang Qianping had a conflict with Chu Xiu before. In the end, just after the conflict had ended, Wang Qianping had died. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? In any case, Yin Botong didn't believe it. When Chu Xiu heard this, a hint of ridicule appeared on his face. He said, "What Lord Yin said is interesting. Wang Qianping didn't die in my hands. Why do you need an explanation from me? On the battlefield, a moment of distraction could easily lead to death. Wang Qianping was too slow. Who could he blame when he was killed by a phaseless demon sect martial artist? If you ask me, you should blame yourself, Lord Yin. Lord Yin, your nickname is the Shadowless Flying Dragon. Your speed can be said to be the fastest in my Guanzhong torture room. In the end, your disciple's speed is so slow. Could it be that you, Lord Yin, held back when you were teaching your disciple? Could it be that you were afraid that your disciple would starve to death? The current Chu Xiu wasn't the Chu Xiu of the past. He had the power to kill a unity of heaven and man expert. Even if he wasn't in existence at the level of the disciplinary officer, he still had the guts to challenge Yin Batong and the other martial artists. Yin Batong's face turned gloomy when he heard Chu Xiu's words. He said coldly, "Chu Xiu, how dare you be so impudent in front of the whole master? Do you still have any respect? Wang Qianping had a conflict with you before he died. In the end, he died the next day. How can there be such a coincidence in this world?" Chu Xiu spread his hands and said, "Who can say for sure what the heavens do? If you want to blame someone, you can only blame that Wang Qianping's bad luck and your poor teaching. You have to know that there are many martial artists who have conflicts with me. Chu Xiu. If everyone's death is blamed on me, then wouldn't I, Chu Xiu, be a god of death? Moreover, that Wang Qianping died in the hands of the phaseless demon sex demon. In the end, you pushed the blame on me. What do you mean by that? Are you saying that I, Chu Xiu, have colluded with the demon? Lord Yin, sometimes you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. I am someone from the Guanzhong torture room. You slander me for colluding with the demon. Isn't that the same as splashing dirty water on the Guanzhong torture room? There are some words that you have to think carefully before you speak." After Chu Xiu finished speaking, Yin Batong's face was already red with anger. When had he ever been talked back to like this by a junior martial artist? Taking a step forward, Yin Batong's entire body erupted with gang qi. Even if it was in front of the Guanzhong torture room, he had to teach Chu Xiu a lesson. Don't think that just because you killed a Unity of Heaven Realm martial artist, Chu Xiu's strength can really be compared to a Unity of Heaven Realm martial artist. Who knows what kind of crafty tricks you used in the battle? However, before he could make a move, a figure had already blocked in front of him. This person was actually Chu Simo. This was something that no one present had expected. Chapter 322. Among the torture officers in the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Simo had always kept the lowest profile. This was related to his status. After all, he was of the lowest status among all the torture officers in the Guanzhong torture room and the head of the narcotics department. Moreover, he was of a different race, so it was inevitable that he would be looked down upon and even discriminated against. Therefore, Chu Simo kept an extremely low profile most of the time in the Guanzhong torture room. If no one provoked him, he would not take the initiative to provoke them either. Chu Xiu's superior, Wei Zhouduan, did not care about this matter. Xiao Yi, who had been walking with Chu Xiu the entire time and had some friendly relations with him, did not care either. In the end, it was Chu Simo who took the initiative to stand up for him. This slightly stunned everyone present. Chu Xiu's lips curled into an imperceptible smile. He knew why Chu Simo stood up for him. He had pulled Chu Xiaoda, a warrior with mediocre aptitude, into the 9-branch division for Chu Simo. Now, it seemed that he had made the right move. Chu Xiaoda indeed had a special place in Chu Simo's heart. He was actually able to make Chu Simo side with Chu Xiu in such a public situation. Yin Batong said fiercely, "Chu Simo, what do you want?" Chu Simo said indifferently, "Nothing much. I just want to remind you that this is the Guanzhong torture room. The hall master is still here. You, a dignified torture officer, are making a scene here and even attacking a junior. You might be shameless, but we torture officers like you do." Yin Batong's face darkened. He immediately pointed at Chu Simo and began to curse. However, at this moment, Guan Siyu finally spoke. He snorted coldly and said, "All right, shut up. It's already over. There's no evidence, so there's no need to pursue this matter." Chu Xiu did not leave any traces behind, and the most important thing in the Guanzhong torture room was evidence. In addition, with Chu Xiu's current status, so what if Yin Batong was the torture officer? He could not casually smear Chu Xiu's name. Seeing that Guan Siyu had already spoken, Yin Batong could only snort coldly and keep quiet. Guan Siyu said in a deep voice, "Chu Xiu, Cheng Zhouhai and company have already explained everything. However, you're the leader of this case. Tell them again." Chu Xiu nodded and repeated the matter to Guan Siyu. Of course, what Chu Xiu said was what he had modified. It was what others could see. For example, why did Chu Xiu insist on killing Qiu Dongmao, even to the point of ruining the Jiangdong 5 heroes? Chu Xiu could totally push the blame to Qiu Dongmao's poisoning of Qiu Zhenxing. He was doing it for the sake of the Guanzhong torture room's reputation. He had to be thorough when doing things. The Guanzhong torture room could not afford to make any mistakes when handling a case. However, everyone present secretly shook their heads when they heard this. Did Chu Xiao look like a selfless person? Anyway, no matter how they looked at it, they did not believe it. Other than that, they really couldn't think of any other reason. Although the 5 heroes of the River East were famous, they were all lone cultivators. To put it simply, killing them would only bring them trouble, but it would be of no value at all. Qiu Dongmao was just an illegitimate child, so he was also of no value. Apart from Qiu Zhenqing's case, they really could not find any suspicious points for Chu Xiao to kill them. Guan Xiu nodded and said, "Okay, you can leave now. I'll get someone to send the reward for this mission to Guanxi. You're still injured, so go back and recuperate first." After all, Guan Xiu was a martial Dao master. She could almost see the injuries on Chu Xiao's body at a glance. Chu Xiao also cupped his hands and said, "Yes, Hall Master." Then, Chu Xiao followed everyone out of the door. After leaving the main hall, Wei Zhouduan's slightly cold voice sounded behind Chu Xiao. "Chu Xiao, I really underestimated you. You can actually fight to death with an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. What method did you use? Was it the strongest hidden weapon of the Chenji sect or the strange poison of the 5 poison sect?" Although many people saw Chu Xiao kill Feng Wuling, most of the people in the pugilistic world still did not believe it after hearing the news. They still believed that Chu Xiao used some cheating methods during the fight, such as hidden weapons or poison. Only these things that could not be guarded against could allow people to kill people of a higher level at will. Although Chu Xiao's use of the heaven's sun gazing at air was indeed a little suspicious, it was also part of Chu Xiao's strength. If there were no loopholes in one's body, it would be useless for Chu Xiao to use the heaven's sun gazing at air. Wei Zhouduan was such a person. He did not believe that Chu Xiao could rely on his own strength to kill an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. Chu Xiao turned around and smiled. The pugilistic world only cares about the results, not the process. I'm standing here, and Feng Wuling has already become a corpse. It's that simple. Does Lord Wei still want to spar with me, your subordinate, to see if I have the strength to fight against an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm? Even an idiot could hear the sarcasm in Chu Xiao's words. Wei Zhouduan's face immediately darkened. He took a step forward, lowered his voice and said coldly, "Chu Xiao, do you still remember that you're my subordinate? Don't forget, I'm still the Guanxi torture officer. The rules of the Guanzhong torture room are the most important. Those who offend their superiors have never had a good ending." Chu Xiao said lightly, "I've never wanted to offend you, Lord. Think about it carefully. Ever since I joined you, I've given you many benefits. As long as you don't force me, I naturally won't make things difficult for you. I won't offend others if they don't offend me. Lord, you're going to retire soon. Can't you just enjoy your days of power in peace?" With that, Chu Xiao turned around and left. However, Wei Zhouduan, who was behind him, had a strong sense of fear in his eyes. Previously, Wei Zhouduan had misjudged Chu Xiao, but this time, he would not be wrong. This Chu Xiao was definitely an extremely ambitious person. If Wei Zhouduan did not touch him, he was afraid that all his power in the Guanxi area would be completely taken away. At that time, what difference would it be from him retiring early? Listening to Chu Xiao's tone, it was obvious that when Chu Xiao had yet to gain a foothold in the Guanxi area, he had always addressed him as Lord. Now, however, it had changed to Lord, and he was on equal footing with Wei Zhouduan. From this, one could see Chu Xiao's attitude. However, Wei Zhouduan really could not think of any way to touch Chu Xiao. There was no reason, nor was there an opportunity. Therefore, Wei Zhouduan could only snort coldly, turn around, and leave. On the other side, Chu Xiao did not care about Wei Zhouduan. In fact, what he said just now was true. During this period of time, Chu Xiao would be busy cultivating in seclusion, trying to break through to the 5 Qis origin realm. As long as Wei Zhouduan did not provoke him, he naturally could not be bothered to provoke Wei Zhouduan. Of course, whether Wei Zhouduan believed him or not depended on him. Just as Chu Xiao was thinking about these things, a few people walked over from the opposite side. The person in the center had a graceful figure and was incomparably charming. It was Guan Xiu's wife, Mei Qinglian. There were a few maids by her side. They had probably followed her out shopping and had just returned. The instant he saw Mei Qinglian, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something. His aura began to become indistinct and unfathomable. He used the heaven sun's gazing at air. At this moment, in Chu Xiu's eyes, Mei Qinglian was no longer a delicate and charming woman. Her entire body was flashing with layers of black threads. They were so dense that they even enveloped her entire body. With Chu Xiu's current cultivation of the heaven sun's gazing at air, he couldn't see any flaws in Mei Qinglian at all. He couldn't even see the trajectories of some of the threads. Chu Xiu's expression didn't change. He put away the heaven sun's gazing at air, and Mei Qinglian seemed to sense something. She walked straight towards Chu Xiu. She stood less than a foot away from him, and a thick but not cloying fragrance wafted over. Pressing her lips against Chu Xiu's ear, Mei Qinglian whispered softly, "Official Chu, what did you see?" Chu Xiu took a step back and said with a faint smile, "I saw Madam's beauty." Mei Qinglian covered her mouth and laughed. Official Chu really knows how to talk. Chu Xiu looked straight into Mei Qinglian's eyes and said, "I only know how to speak the truth." It was hard to tell what Mei Qinglian was thinking, but she still took a step back. She waved her hand and walked into the main hall with her maidservants. Chu Xiu stood where he was without a change in expression. At this moment, he was sure that there was something wrong with Mei Qinglian. Even the huge change in the Guanzhong torture room in the original plot might have something to do with Mei Qinglian. But what did that have to do with him? Mei Qinglian and Chu Xiu had no conflict, nor did she threaten Chu Xiu's interests. Why would Chu Xiu take the initiative to cause trouble? He said that he only saw Mei Qinglian's beauty, and that was the truth. As for whether Mei Qinglian would affect the interests of the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu couldn't care less. He had no loyalty to the Guanzhong torture room. To be precise, Chu Xiu would not be loyal to anyone or any force. He only needed the loyalty of others. After returning to the Zhenzhou Prefecture's Inspector Hall, Du Guangzhong, Ghost Hand King, and others specially gathered in the Zhenzhou Prefecture to welcome Chu Xiu. At this time, Chu Xiu's people were not only concentrated in the Zhenzhou Prefecture, but also in all the prefectures in Guanxi, except for the prefectures directly under Weijiu. It could be said that the business lifeline of the entire Guanxi was in the hands of Chu Xiu. The other inspectors of Guanxi had no choice but to acquiesce to this behavior. Of the Guanxi inspectors, Yang Ling was secretly one of Chu Xiu's people. Jiang Taoran, Situ Xing, and Feng Hua did not dare to provoke Chu Xiu. The remaining Wei Chongling of the Nine Plains Wei family was dissatisfied with Chu Xiu's actions. But he had already been taught a lesson by Chu Xiu. Even the Nine Plains Wei family did not have a good time at Chu Xiu's hands. What could he use to challenge Chu Xiu? So right now, Chu Xiu's people controlled almost half of Guanxi. In some places, their words were more effective than the local inspectors. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.